In the beginning, before ink met parchment and before symbols hardened into alphabets, humanity spoke through stone. It was not language in the way we now understand it, not a system of letters or grammar, but a dialogue carved through effort, weight, and permanence. The first monuments humanity raised were not merely structures, they were messages. Messages meant for the sky, for the spirits, for the generations that would someday return to walk among them. And as we stand today at the threshold of deep time, these stones are the last remaining witnesses to epochs that human memory has long forgotten. To look at an ancient megalith is to feel a quiet pull, like an echo from a distant past tapping against the walls of the present. There is something profoundly human about these creations, something both fragile and unyielding. Their builders are long gone, their languages silenced, their myths scattered into dust, but the stones remain. They endure the wind, the rain, the shifting of continents, and the erasure of eras. They stand as anchors of existence, reminding us that history is not just what we write, but what we leave behind. Yet the true mystery lies not merely in their age or their immensity, but in the intention behind them. Why did ancient people, with limited tools and fragile bodies, choose to shape the earth itself? Why did they drag stones weighing dozens, sometimes hundreds, of tons across impossible terrain? Why did they align monoliths with stars that required mathematical knowledge we barely attribute to their time? These questions form the doorway into our journey, a journey not just across landscapes, but across human identity itself. In the distant silence of prehistory, life moved to the rhythm of nature. The sky dictated seasons, the ground dictated survival, and the unknown lurked behind every horizon. For early humans, the world was alive with spirits, ancestors, patterns, and cosmic forces. Every river carried meaning, every mountain hid a presence, every storm was a message. In this world, building with stone was not simply construction, it was communication. It was a conversation with the earth, a way to stabilize a universe that felt vast, unpredictable, and divine. This documentary begins by stepping into that world, by imagining what it felt like to be alive in an age when the veil between nature and myth was thin. The first megaliths were not isolated curiosities, they were expressions of fear, courage, curiosity, and belonging. They were humanity's earliest attempts to anchor meaning into physical form. In a landscape where everything changed, seasons, migrations, food sources, predators, stone offered the promise of something that might endure. Something that could stand long after the tribe had moved on, long after the children had forgotten, long after the storytellers had ceased. When we approach these ancient monuments today, we tend to focus on the engineering, the size of the stones, the precision of the cuts, the astronomical alignments. But beneath all of that lies something far more emotional, a yearning for permanence in an impermanent world. These stones were not built simply to amaze us, they were built because ancient people needed them. They needed meaning carved into a chaotic world. They needed a place to gather, to mourn, to celebrate, to ask, to imagine. They needed something that could hold the weight of stories too important to lose. And yet, as much as the stones reveal, they also conceal. For all their grandeur, they refuse to give us clear answers. They tease us with patterns and symbols, with alignments to solstices and stars, with carvings of animals no longer living and rituals no longer remembered. Some seem like temples, others like tombs, others like calendars or star maps. But none of them tell us exactly who built them or why. The past whispers, but stone does not explain, it only endures. This documentary invites you to move through that silence. To step into ruins that were once living theaters of belief and imagination. To walk between pillars that marked sacred spaces. To stand in chambers where the dead once rested under shafts of precisely guided sunlight. To feel what ancient people felt when they watched the sky align with their creations. These are the moments when we sense humanity stretching across the ages, reaching for something greater than itself. Each megalith we will explore, 17 in total, offers a different fragment of this ancient story. Some rise from deserts where nothing else survives. Others stand hidden in jungles or lie beneath oceans. Some bear the marks of forgotten ceremonies, others appear almost machine-like in their precision. Some seem to echo myths we still remember, others are tied to cultures we know nothing about. Together, they form a map of human wonder, an atlas of ambition, devotion, and mystery. As we begin this journey, consider the sheer magnitude of time we are about to cross. The oldest of these monuments predates writing, agriculture, even cities. They belong to a world where human beings were only beginning to imagine permanence. A world where constructing a circle of stones required sacrifice measured not in resources or labor, but in generations. Imagine starting a monument knowing your children would continue it and your grandchildren might finish it. Imagine creating a structure not for your own lifetime but for eternity. This opening chapter is not just an introduction, it is a doorway. A threshold into a world where stone remembers more than we do. Where every monolith is a question, and every question is an invitation to look deeper into our shared human story. As we journey through these ancient creations, we will not only uncover the secrets of the Earth's monuments but also the secrets of the people who shaped them, and perhaps, the secrets of ourselves. Long before the empires of stone and bronze, before kings carved their names into tablets and armies marched across continents, humanity stood on the edge of a quiet revolution. It did not begin with a battle, nor with a discovery of fire or metal. It began with a decision to stay. To root themselves in one place, to weave memory into soil, and to shape the earth into something that could reflect the world within their minds. This shift from wandering hunters to settled builders marks one of the most profound turning points in human history, and it laid the foundation for every megalith that would one day rise across the world. Imagine a world before walls, before houses, before even the idea of a village. Early humans moved like shadows across the land, following herds, seasons, and shifting climates. Everything was temporary: campsites, shelters, hunting grounds, even relationships with landscapes. But as the climate slowly stabilized after the last ice age, something changed. Plants could be cultivated. Animals could be managed. And humans, once shaped by the environment, began shaping it in return. This new stability brought something extraordinary: imagination without constant fear. Instead of focusing every waking moment on survival, humans found moments to think, to dream, to create. They observed the stars with more attention, noticed the cyclical patterns of the sun and moon, began to mark seasons not just by instinct but by intention. With this came rituals, gatherings, shared stories, moments that demanded a place, a center, a marker that could anchor these new forms of community. And so, the first architects emerged. They were not architects in the modern sense. They had no blueprints, no mathematics beyond intuition, no tools beyond what nature provided. But they possessed something far more powerful: the ability to envision something bigger than themselves. A stone circle that would outlast storms. A mound that would hold the memory of ancestors. A marker aligned with the rising sun that would announce the beginning of seasons. These were not mere structures, they were declarations that humanity had begun to claim space and meaning within the vastness of the world. The first architects looked at a landscape and imagined what it could become. They shaped hillsides into mounds, embedded stones into precise formations, carved earth into ceremonial paths. Each act required unity, coordination, and a shared purpose. This was architecture not only of stone but of society itself. To move a single monolith required dozens, sometimes hundreds, of people, working together, trusting each other, believing in something greater than their individual lives. Such cooperation did not arise easily. It required early humans to organize their communities around ideas about the cosmos, the spirits, the afterlife, the sun's journeys, and the cycles of birth and death. Architecture and belief became intertwined. When they built, they did not merely stack stones, they built a worldview. They aligned their monuments with the stars that guided them, with the equinoxes that fed them, with the myths that comforted them. The land became a canvas, and each generation added another stroke. But these early architects also faced immense challenges. Moving stones weighing several tons when the wheel had not yet been invented demanded creativity and courage. They used ropes of plant fiber, sledges carved from logs, and paths lubricated with water and animal fat. They built earthen ramps, dug trenches, and leveraged gravity itself. Every successful lift was a triumph over physics, every aligned stone a testament to their ingenuity. And every monument completed transformed not only the landscape but the people themselves. For the first time in human history, societies began to think beyond the present moment. A monument could not be built in a day, a month, or even a year. Many required decades, some required generations. To commit to such a project meant believing in continuity, in a future, in the idea that your descendants would finish what you began. This is where architecture becomes philosophy. Stone forced humans to think long-term, to imagine themselves as part of a chain stretching backward and forward across time. And so these early communities grew stronger. Gathering stones forged bonds. Sharing labor forged identities. Rituals around these structures shaped the first myths and the earliest senses of belonging. These shared projects became the seeds from which civilizations would grow. A village that could raise a stone circle could later raise a temple. A community that could coordinate labor for a burial mound could organize agriculture, governance, and trade. Architecture, in essence, taught humans how to be human together. As the first monuments rose from the earth, they also transformed the landscape. Hills became sacred. Rivers became boundaries of ritual grounds. Open plains became sites of celestial observation. Each structure altered the way humans interacted with their world, shifting their focus from wandering to building, from fleeting experiences to enduring memory. And yet, even with all this innovation, the motivations behind these early projects remain as mysterious as the monuments themselves. Were they built for worship? For ancestors? For astronomical knowledge? For the simple human desire to create something that would last? Perhaps they were all these things at once. Ancient people, like us, held mixed emotions: fear, awe, longing, reverence. Their monuments are reflections of the full complexity of the human soul. When we look at the great megaliths today, we see the achievements of later cultures: Stonehenge, Göbekli Tepe, Baalbek. But before those wonders could exist, humanity had to learn the very concept of permanence. The first architects gave us that. They learned how to impose intention on nature, how to shape landscapes with meaning, how to turn raw stone into memory. This second chapter serves as the foundation for our entire journey. It is a reminder that the secrets of ancient monuments do not begin with the stones themselves, they begin with the people who dared to imagine them. The ones who first looked at the earth and said, "We can shape this. We can change this. We can leave something behind." High on a hill in southeastern Turkey, overlooking a landscape that once cradled the earliest human settlements, lies a place that should not exist, not at the time it was built, not with the technology humans supposedly had, and not with the level of social organization we believed our ancestors possessed. Göbekli Tepe is a contradiction carved into stone, a monument so ancient that it predates pottery, metal, agriculture, and even the wheel. It stands not just as an archaeological site, but as a challenge, challenging our assumptions, our histories, and our understanding of what it meant to be human in the deep dawn of civilization. When archaeologists first brushed aside the soil covering its T-shaped pillars, they expected to find the remains of a Neolithic village. Perhaps a few tools, animal bones, signs of early farming. Instead, they uncovered something impossible: massive, carefully carved limestone pillars arranged in concentric circles, some weighing up to 20 tons. These were not the creations of simple foragers wandering across the land. These were the creations of planners, engineers, artists, and priests, long before such roles should have existed. Göbekli Tepe dates back almost 12,000 years, to a time when humans were still experimenting with cultivation and domestication. Yet here stood a structure that required hundreds of workers, coordinated labor, long-term vision, and an understanding of stone-cutting techniques that appeared millennia ahead of their time. Each pillar was carved from bedrock using primitive tools, then transported and set upright in carefully designed circles. The sheer logistics required suggest organization far beyond what scholars once assumed hunter-gatherers were capable of. But the mysteries of Göbekli Tepe run deeper than its engineering. What truly sets it apart are the carvings, the menagerie of animals etched into its pillars: foxes, cranes, snakes, boars, scorpions, vultures. These creatures, rendered in striking relief, appear not as random decorations but as part of a symbolic language now lost to us. Their meanings remain a puzzle, but many scholars believe they represent cosmological beliefs, mythic narratives, or clan identities. Whatever they signify, they reveal that the builders of Göbekli Tepe were not simply surviving, they were thinking, dreaming, creating culture. This realization has transformed our understanding of prehistory. For decades, the prevailing theory was simple: first agriculture, then settlements, then religion and monumental architecture. Göbekli Tepe flips that sequence on its head. Here we find monumental architecture before agriculture. Here we find ritual spaces before permanent villages. It suggests that the need for shared belief, the desire to gather, worship, and make meaning, may have been the very force that pushed humanity toward farming, not the other way around. People did not build monuments because they settled. They settled because they needed to gather in order to build. The site's central pillars, particularly the two towering monoliths in each circle, seem to represent anthropomorphic beings, possibly deities, ancestors, or mythic guardians. Their arms are etched along their sides, hands clasped in front, bodies adorned with belts and loincloths. These are the oldest known representations of human-like figures in monumental form, suggesting that early humans saw the divine reflected in the human shape. Or perhaps they believed their ancestors had become divine. And yet, for all its grandeur, Göbekli Tepe was not a settlement. There are no traces of homes, no hearths for cooking, no signs of daily life. It was not a village, it was a sanctuary. People traveled to this hill from distant regions, bringing offerings, conducting rituals, and participating in ceremonies that likely strengthened alliances between scattered groups. In a world where small bands lived in relative isolation, Göbekli Tepe may have served as a social magnet, uniting people across valleys and mountains. But perhaps the most astonishing mystery lies not in what Göbekli Tepe is, but in what happened afterward. Thousands of years after its construction, the entire complex was deliberately buried. The circles were filled with earth and debris, intentionally entombing the site. This was not abandonment, it was preservation. The people who built Göbekli Tepe chose to seal their sacred space beneath the soil, as if safeguarding it for future generations or closing a chapter of their world that no longer fit with their evolving identity. Why? No one knows. Some believe the rise of agriculture shifted social structures, making the old rituals obsolete. Others think environmental changes forced people to move on. Still others suggest that the beliefs encoded in the stones no longer reflected reality as societies transformed. Whatever the reason, the act of burial preserved the site almost perfectly, allowing us to rediscover it thousands of years later like a time capsule from the beginning of human imagination. Standing before those ancient pillars today, one feels something difficult to articulate. A sense of connection, as though the people who carved these stones were not primitive, but fully human, filled with creativity, fear, ambition, and a longing for meaning. The carvings speak of a world where myth and reality intertwined, where animals served as spiritual guides and ancestors watched from beyond the veil. The circular layout suggests cycles of life, death, and rebirth, patterns still embedded in human consciousness. Göbekli Tepe forces us to confront an uncomfortable truth: history is not a straight line. Civilization did not evolve in a neat, predictable progression. There were moments, like this one, when humanity leaped forward in ways we struggle to understand. Moments when people created things far beyond what we assumed they were capable of. Moments when belief, not necessity, drove innovation. This section of our journey is not simply about an ancient temple. It is about rewriting the origins of humanity's story. Göbekli Tepe is proof that spiritual imagination may be older than cities. That art may be older than farming. That cooperation may be older than political hierarchy. And that the desire to build something eternal, to reach beyond the limits of a single lifetime, has been with us since the very beginning. As we leave this primordial sanctuary and move forward into the next chapter, we carry with us the realization that the human mind, even at the dawn of civilization, was already vast, complex, and capable of wonder. The builders of Göbekli Tepe were not primitive ancestors fumbling toward progress. They were dreamers, visionaries who reshaped their world in stone. Across the windswept plains of Salisbury, where mist clings to the grass and the horizon rolls gently into silence, rises a monument whose presence feels almost supernatural. Stonehenge is not merely a ring of stones, it is a place where time seems to fold, where the past watches quietly from behind every shadow. For thousands of years, people have stood before these towering sarsen's and bluestones, asking the same questions we ask today: who built it? Why here? Why in this exact shape? And how did they manage such impossible feats with the tools of their time? Yet the more we discover, the deeper its mystery becomes, as if Stonehenge itself guards the secrets of an age long gone. What sets Stonehenge apart is not just its age but its precision. Built in phases over many centuries, beginning nearly 5,000 years ago, it embodies intelligence and purpose woven into stone. The structure aligns with the sun in a way that feels less like coincidence and more like cosmic choreography. On the summer solstice, the sun rises directly over the heel stone, casting light through the heart of the monument. On the winter solstice, the sun sets perfectly between the tallest trilithons. These astronomical alignments were intentional, requiring knowledge of the sky far beyond what many imagine prehistoric people possessed. This was not simply a gathering place, it was a calendar written in stone. A place where the turning points of the year were celebrated with ceremony and awe. A place where the sky and earth touched through architecture. For the ancient builders, tracking the movements of the sun was more than science, it was survival and spirituality intertwined. The solstices marked crucial moments for agriculture, migration, and ritual. Stonehenge transformed those cycles into physical form, allowing communities to gather at the exact moment when the world shifted from light to darkness, and darkness back to light. Yet Stonehenge's story stretches beyond celestial alignment. The stones themselves tell a tale of immense effort and determination. The larger sarsens, each weighing up to 25 tons, were dragged from quarries nearly 20 miles away. The smaller bluestones, though lighter, came from the Preseli Hills in Wales, more than 150 miles distant. Moving these stones required not only physical strength but organizational genius. It likely took hundreds of people, wooden sledges, ropes, and an unshakable belief that this monument mattered enough to justify years, if not generations, of labor. But why? Why would early humans devote such energy to a structure with no obvious practical function? One answer lies in the landscape itself. Stonehenge was not built in isolation. It was part of a vast ceremonial complex stretching across the plain: mounds, timber circles, processional pathways, and burial sites connected in a sacred web. The river Avon flowed as the spine of this ritual landscape, guiding people between realms of the living and the dead. Archaeologists now believe Stonehenge may have been the center of a ceremonial system, where different structures symbolized different stages of life, death, and cosmic renewal. The bluestones, believed to possess healing or spiritual significance, may have been brought from Wales as part of a sacred migration or an ancestral pilgrimage. Each stone could have represented a clan, a spirit, or a lineage, turning Stonehenge into a kind of physical map of ancient identity. The sarsens, larger and more imposing, were arranged in ways that created ceremonial pathways, framed views of the horizon, and defined sacred spaces. Every stone had meaning. Every placement had intention. As visitors approach Stonehenge today, they often feel a strange sense of reverence, even if they do not understand why. This emotional response may echo what ancient people felt thousands of years ago. To them, this circle of stones was a threshold, a place where the living could reach toward the divine. Where ancestors might be invoked. Where the sun's return was not just a natural event but a moment of cosmic triumph. Standing within the ring, one does not merely observe the rising sun, one participates in an ancient conversation between humanity and the cosmos. But Stonehenge also carries an air of melancholy, as if touched by the weight of forgotten rituals. Many of the traditions practiced there have long since vanished, swallowed by time. The songs once chanted at dawn, the processions that moved along the avenue, the offerings laid between stones, all are lost to silence. Even the purpose of its later phases remains unclear. Were the trilithons symbols of creation myths? Did the circular form reflect cycles of existence? Was this a gathering place for tribes, a site for healing, or a sanctuary for the dead? New discoveries continue to reshape our understanding. Beneath the ground lie cremated remains, suggesting Stonehenge may have been a burial site for elites or revered ancestors. Nearby pits and wooden structures hint at rituals we can only imagine. The monument seems to have functioned as both a solar temple and a place of the dead, a duality that appears in many ancient cultures. Light and darkness. Life and death. Presence and absence. Stonehenge is built upon these opposites, capturing the essence of human experience in its design. Despite its age, Stonehenge remains a living monument. Every year during the solstices, thousands gather to witness the sun align with the ancient stones just as it did thousands of years ago. It is a moment where modern and prehistoric humanity briefly share the same sense of awe, reminding us that while civilizations rise and fall, our fascination with the cosmos endures. The sun still rises through the same gap. The shadows still stretch across the same grass. The earth still spins beneath a sky ancient people knew as intimately as we know our digital screens. What makes Stonehenge extraordinary is not simply its engineering or mystery, it is the way it bridges worlds. It connects science with spirituality, nature with architecture, the living with the dead, and the ancient with the modern. It is a testament to the human desire to understand our place in the universe, to anchor the fleeting moments of life in a monument meant to outlast time itself. As we leave the plains of Salisbury and continue our journey, Stonehenge stands in our memory as a reminder of what humanity can accomplish when imagination, community, and celestial wonder intertwine. It is not just a monument. It is a heartbeat of prehistory, echoing across millennia, keeping time with the sky. In the heart of Lebanon's Bekaa Valley stands a site that defies not only time but imagination. Baalbek, once a center of ancient worship and later transformed by empires, holds within its foundation some of the largest worked stones ever carved by human hands. These megaliths, known as the trilithon, are so massive that even modern machinery struggles to move them. Their existence forces us to confront a perplexing question: how did ancient people, thousands of years before cranes, hydraulics, or industrial tools, lift and position stones weighing as much as 800 to 1,000 tons? To stand before them is to feel the limits of human understanding stretch thin, as if the stones themselves carry a riddle carved into their impossible size. The story of Baalbek begins long before the Romans built their grand temples upon its platform. Archaeological evidence suggests that this site was sacred for millennia, used by Neolithic communities and Bronze Age civilizations long before recorded history. But it is the foundation stones, the cyclopean blocks at the base of the Temple of Jupiter, that draw the world's fascination. These stones, arranged with almost supernatural precision, are larger than anything used in the pyramids of Egypt. They dwarf the megaliths of Stonehenge. Each block measures over 20 meters in length and weighs more than an entire modern military tank. Yet they sit perfectly aligned, their surfaces smoothed, their edges sharp, and their placement flawless. The most astonishing stones lie not even in the temple itself, but in the nearby quarries. The famous Stone of the Pregnant Woman, weighing over 1,000 tons, rests partially cut from the bedrock. Recently, an even larger stone was discovered beneath it, estimated at more than 1,600 tons, making it the largest worked stone in human history. These unfinished giants tell a story of ambition that borders on impossible. They hint that the builders intended to move stones even larger than those already placed, suggesting a level of confidence and engineering knowledge far beyond what ancient societies are commonly credited with. How were such stones transported? Scholars debate fiercely. Some propose the use of rollers and sledges, lubricated with oil or water, while others suggest sophisticated crane-like systems powered by hundreds of workers. But even these theories buckle under the sheer weight involved. The terrain between the quarry and the temple site is uneven, requiring not just movement but precise maneuvering. To lift a stone weighing hundreds of tons onto a platform several meters high would require engineering solutions that still perplex experts today. It is no wonder that later civilizations, Greeks, Romans, Persians, looked at Baalbek and attributed its origins to giants, gods, or divine intervention. This tension between the ordinary and the extraordinary forms the emotional core of Baalbek's mystery. We know humans built it, but the scale challenges what we believe those humans were capable of. The people who constructed these foundations did so with purpose, discipline, and a mastery of technique that has been lost to time. They worked with a vision that stretched beyond their own lives, creating something meant to tower over generations. The stones of Baalbek were not merely building materials, they were symbols of power, permanence, and connection to the divine. The site later became one of the grand jewels of the Roman Empire, home to colossal temples dedicated to Jupiter, Bacchus, and Venus. The Romans expanded the platform, adding their own architectural marvels atop the mysterious ancient base. The Temple of Jupiter was among the largest religious structures the empire ever built, its columns rising nearly 70 feet into the sky. But even Rome, with its engineering brilliance, did not attempt stones as large as the trilithon. They worked with what was already there, almost as if they, too, feared or respected the monumental foundation laid by unknown predecessors. Walking among the ruins today, the contrast is striking. The Roman structures, though magnificent, bear the marks of weathering and collapse. Meanwhile, the older stones, those ancient monoliths, remain steadfast, unmoved, unbroken. Their surfaces carry the scars of age, yet their presence feels eternal. It is as if the earlier builders understood something fundamental about stone that later civilizations forgot. They built not to impress but to endure, to create anchors in a world where empires rise and fall like dust in the wind. But Baalbek is not only about engineering. It is also about myth. For thousands of years, stories have grown around the site like vines curling around a pillar. Some legends claim the giants of old, beings mentioned in ancient Mesopotamian and Hebrew lore, constructed the temple platform. Others suggest that Solomon commanded jinn to build it, using supernatural labor. Still others imagine forgotten civilizations with advanced knowledge lost in antiquity. These myths reflect a simple truth: people throughout history have looked at Baalbek and felt the same sense of disbelief we feel today. Yet perhaps the real mystery is not how the stones were moved, but why. What drove ancient people to undertake such a monumental task? Why choose blocks so large they would test even the limits of imagination? One theory suggests that the stones symbolized permanence, a physical manifestation of unshakable connection to the gods. Another proposes that the megaliths served as a ceremonial or cosmic foundation, aligning with celestial pathways or earth energies. It is even possible that the size itself was the statement, an expression of power, unity, or transcendence. Standing in the shadow of these colossal stones, one feels both small and deeply connected to the human story. The air carries a silence that seems older than language. The mountains surrounding the valley feel like guardians, watching over the tumbled ruins and unyielding foundations. And beneath one's feet lies layer upon layer of human ambition, from the earliest unknown civilization to the Romans, from medieval pilgrims to modern archaeologists. Baalbek is a palimpsest of cultures, each leaving its mark, but none erasing the mystery at its core. The giants of Baalbek remind us that our ancestors were not limited by the boundaries we draw for them. They dreamed on scales we struggle to comprehend. They built structures meant to last beyond memory. They challenged the earth itself, shaping it with determination and belief. And their legacy stands today as one of the greatest enigmas of the ancient world, a testament to what humans can accomplish when they reach toward the impossible. In the golden heart of ancient Egypt, where the Nile carved life into the desert and kings believed themselves the living bridge between gods and mortals, rose one of the most astonishing architectural complexes in human history, Karnak. More than a temple, more than a monument, Karnak was a living city of ritual, a place where stone, sunlight, and belief met in a choreography of cosmic precision. Though countless pillars and halls make up this vast sacred landscape, it is the towering gateways, the trilithons, or monumental pylons, that define the essence of Karnak. These stone thresholds did not merely lead visitors into the temple, they guided them into a universe shaped by light, shadow, and divine alignment. To approach Karnak is to walk into a world built with cosmic intention. The great temple axis was aligned so precisely with the winter solstice sunrise that once each year, the sun would pierce the sanctuary's darkness in a single golden beam, illuminating the inner shrine of Ammonius-Ra. This sacred moment was more than celestial spectacle, it was ritual rebirth. As the sun returned on the shortest day of the year, so too did the god's presence return to earth. And it was the trilithons, rising like colossal stone gateways, that framed this journey of light. Each pylon served as a symbolic horizon, its sloping sides echoing the shape of the hieroglyph for Ake, the horizon where the sun is reborn. Passing between these massive gateways was a passage between worlds, a movement from the realm of the ordinary into the domain of the divine. To the ancient Egyptians, architecture was not simply practical, it was narrative. Every shape, every alignment, every shaft of light carried meaning. And the trilithons of Karnak were among the most powerful storytelling instruments ever crafted in stone. The sheer scale of these gateways is staggering. The largest pylons stand over 40 meters tall, formed from blocks weighing many tons. Their construction required not only engineering prowess but an understanding of balance, weight, and material that still impresses modern architects. Workers hauled limestone and sandstone by river, dragging them across the desert and stacking them with uncanny precision. Ramps rose like mountains around the growing pylons, allowing crews to place each block higher than the last. It was slow, dangerous work, a task that demanded decades of dedication. Yet the results endure thousands of years later, standing in silent testimony to the power of human intention. Inside the ceremonial heart of Karnak lies the great hypostyle hall, a forest of 134 columns so massive that even today a dozen people could barely link hands around one. But it is the trilithons, those monumental gateways, that guide visitors from one sacred chamber to another, controlling the flow of light. In the bright Egyptian mornings, sunlight flooded the outer courtyards. By midday, the pylons cast long shadows across the temple floor. By evening, the halls grew dim and introspective. The temple was alive with the shifting balance between illumination and darkness, mirroring the cosmic cycles Egyptians believed governed existence. This play of light and shadow was not accidental. It was a metaphor for creation itself. In Egyptian mythology, order emerged from chaos, light from darkness. Every sunrise was a victory, every sunset a test. Karnak's gateways recreated this cosmic struggle in architectural form. To walk through them was to participate in the eternal rhythm of rebirth and renewal, a journey priests enacted daily and festivalgoers witnessed in awe during grand ceremonies. But Karnak was not only a temple for gods, it was a stage for kings. Pharaohs added their own pylons, statues, and inscriptions, each seeking to align themselves with divine history. Every new gateway expanded the temple's narrative, stretching it across centuries. The result was a place that felt both eternal and ever-changing. Some pylons remain unfinished, their ramps never removed, their stones still waiting for the workers who never returned. These frozen moments in time speak of shifts in power, economic upheavals, and the unpredictable currents of history. Yet despite its long evolution, Karnak's core remained constant. It was a place where architecture taught people how to see. Not just with their eyes, but with their spirits. The gateways framed the rising sun like a painting. The columns guided one's gaze upward, toward the heavens. The darkness of the inner sanctuaries forced visitors to confront mystery and humility. Every journey through Karnak was a lesson, about the cosmos, about life, about the fragile balance between order and chaos. For modern visitors, walking through Karnak evokes feelings surprisingly similar to those ancient pilgrims might have experienced. The heat presses down like a physical force, the stone radiates centuries of memory, and the shadows stretch long across the ground as if time itself moves differently here. One can almost hear the distant echo of priests chanting, the rustle of ceremonial banners, the footsteps of thousands gathering for festivals that once animated these sacred halls. The trilithons themselves, though weathered, still stand tall against the desert sky. Their walls bear hieroglyphs carved with care, names of kings, prayers to gods, depictions of offerings and rituals. Many of these inscriptions were meant to last forever, ensuring the king's connection to the divine would endure long after his body returned to dust. In this way, the gateways serve not only as thresholds of light but as thresholds of immortality. As we leave Karnak behind in our journey across the megalithic world, the image that lingers is not just one of grandeur but of intention. Here, stone was used to choreograph nature itself. Here, architecture was a bridge between earth and sky. Here, humanity learned that meaning could be shaped in stone, guided by sunlight, and carried through time. The trilithons of Karnak remind us that ancient people did not merely build, they imagined, aligned, harmonized, and transformed their world into a living calendar of cosmic truth. On a remote volcanic island in the vast emptiness of the Pacific Ocean, where waves crash endlessly against black cliffs and the wind sings through the tall grasses, stand hundreds of silent watchers. These are the Moai of Easter Island, enigmatic stone giants carved by the Rapa Nui people, gazing inland with expressions both solemn and haunting. They appear timeless, as if frozen in mid-thought, guardians of a world that has changed beyond recognition. Yet their stillness belies a history filled with ingenuity, struggle, devotion, and mystery. To stand before a Moai is to feel the weight of centuries and the quiet echo of a civilization that once flourished against impossible odds. Easter Island, or Rapa Nui, lies thousands of miles from the nearest continent. Its isolation is so extreme that early explorers described it as the loneliest inhabited place on Earth. And yet, in this place of scarcity, the Rapa Nui carved nearly 900 monumental statues, some towering more than 30 feet tall and weighing over 80 tons. These Moai were not merely artistic creations, they were embodiments of ancestors, spiritual protectors believed to watch over clans and ensure prosperity. Each Moai represented a lineage, a memory, a presence. In carving them, the people were not just shaping stone, they were shaping identity. The process of creating a Moai was itself a sacred act. Carvers worked in the volcanic crater of Reino Raraku, where dozens of unfinished statues still lie, half-formed, as if abandoned mid-breath. Using stone tools, artisans chipped away for months, revealing the elongated faces, deep eye sockets, and broad noses that define the Moai style. Once completed, the statues were somehow transported miles across the island, over hills, through rugged terrain, and toward ceremonial platforms called ahu. This movement remains one of the great mysteries of Easter Island. Without wheels, metal tools, or large animals, the Rapa Nui achieved what should have been impossible. Some researchers propose that the Moai were dragged horizontally on wooden sledges. Others suggest they were rolled on logs, though this theory has been challenged by the island's limited forest resources. The most compelling idea, supported by experimental archaeology, is that the Moai were walked upright, rocked carefully from side to side like colossal stone beings taking deliberate steps. This method, requiring coordination and rhythm, aligns with Rapa Nui oral traditions that speak of the statues walking to their final locations. If true, it transforms the Moai from monuments of static grandeur into participants in a ceremonial journey across the island. Once erected on their Ahu platforms, the Moai faced inland, not toward the sea as many expect. They watched over the villages, symbolizing the protective gaze of the ancestors. Their presence offered spiritual strength, unity, and a connection to heritage. For the Rapa Nui, the Moai were not mere statues, they were living reminders of lineage and leadership. Eyes made from coral were placed in their sockets during ceremonies, giving them an almost animate presence. With their eyes in place, the Moai were considered spiritually activated, ready to watch over the people. But the story of Easter Island is not only one of creation, it is also one of profound transformation and tragedy. As the centuries passed, the island's limited resources began to strain under the demands of its growing population. Forests dwindled, soil eroded, and tensions rose. Eventually, many Moai were toppled during periods of internal conflict, a symbolic act meant to break the power of rival clans by destroying their ancestral protectors. These fallen giants, lying face down across the landscape, embody the collapse of a civilization under pressure. Their silent forms tell a story of environmental fragility, competition, and the cost of overextension. Yet the narrative of Rapa Nui is far more complex than simple collapse. The Rapa Nui people adapted, survived, and maintained cultural continuity despite immense challenges. They developed new religious systems, new ways of fishing, new methods of living on their small island. The famous birdman cult emerged after the era of Moai construction, demonstrating creativity and resilience. Even after ecological decline and later European contact brought further hardship, the Rapa Nui never disappeared. Their descendants still live on the island today, preserving traditions and honoring the legacy of their ancestors. For modern visitors, the Moai evoke feelings both awe-inspiring and melancholic. Their faces are serene, yet their presence hints at a world of forgotten rituals, songs, and ceremonies. The wind moves through the grass around them, carrying whispers of the past. The volcanic hills in the distance speak of the island's fiery birth, while the endless ocean reflects the courage of the people who crossed vast waters to reach this remote land. To witness the Moai is to sense both the grandeur of human creativity and the fragility of human societies. The mystery of how the Moai were transported often captures the world's attention, but the deeper mystery lies in why they were created. What powerful force of belief drove the Rapa Nui to carve so many? Why devote so much labor, so many resources, to erect these towering guardians? Perhaps carving the Moai was a way of anchoring identity in a place where isolation could easily breed fear. Perhaps they were expressions of gratitude toward ancestors who guided the community. Or perhaps they served as bridges between the mortal world and the realm of spirits, transforming the island into a living shrine. Whatever their purpose, the Moai stand today as a testament to human resilience. They tell us that even on the farthest edge of the known world, people imagined greatness. They built monuments that defy distance, scarcity, and time. They shaped stone with reverence, shaping themselves in the process. The Moai remind us that creativity does not require abundance, it requires belief. And that even in solitude, humanity reaches upward, outward, and inward. As we continue our journey through ancient megaliths, the Moai leave us with a profound lesson. Civilizations are not measured only by wealth or territory, but by the stories they carve into the world. And on Easter Island, those stories still stand, watching, waiting, remembering. In the emerald landscape of Ireland, where rolling hills shimmer under shifting skies and ancient myths flow through the rivers like memories, lies a monument older than Stonehenge and older than the pyramids of Egypt. Newgrange, a great passage tomb built more than 5,000 years ago, stands as one of humanity's most profound expressions of cosmic understanding. On the outside, it appears as a massive grass-covered mound encircled by carved stones. But its true magic lies hidden within, a chamber that comes alive only once a year, when darkness gives way to a single beam of light. This moment, brief yet breathtaking, is a reminder that ancient people understood the cycles of life and death with a depth we are only beginning to appreciate. At first glance, Newgrange looks like a mound of earth rising gently from the landscape, almost blending into the natural world around it. But as one approaches, its intentional design becomes clear. A ring of massive curbstones, many decorated with spirals, chevrons, and geometrics, wraps around its base. These carvings are not random, they reflect a symbolic language whose meanings remain elusive but undeniably sacred. The entrance stone, etched with an elaborate triple spiral, is one of the most iconic pieces of Neolithic art. It serves as a threshold marker, a boundary between the ordinary world and the inner realm of mystery. Beyond this threshold lies a long, narrow passageway leading to a central chamber with 3 side recesses. To enter is to move physically and symbolically from light into darkness, from the world of the living into the domain of spirits and ancestors. The effect is powerful. Even today, with electric lights guiding visitors, the passage feels like a journey into the womb of the earth. For the ancient builders, this experience must have been profound. They were not simply creating a tomb, they were crafting a space where the cycle of life, death, and rebirth could be expressed through architecture. The true wonder of Newgrange reveals itself on the winter solstice, the longest night of the year. As dawn breaks, a single ray of sunlight enters through a specially designed opening above the doorway, known as the roof box. This beam travels along the passage and slowly illuminates the inner chamber, banishing darkness in a slow, golden ascent. For a few minutes each year, the heart of the tomb glows with the light of the rising sun. Then, just as slowly, the light withdraws, and darkness returns for another year. This solstice alignment is no accident. The builders of Newgrange understood the movements of the sun with extraordinary precision. They engineered the mound's architecture to capture a moment so fleeting that even slight miscalculations would have ruined the effect. The passageway and chamber were constructed with corbelled stones, arranged in layers that press inward without collapsing, creating a waterproof structure that has survived for millennia. This combination of engineering skill and astronomical accuracy makes Newgrange one of the most advanced Neolithic monuments in the world. But what did this illumination symbolize to the ancient people who built it? Many scholars believe the winter solstice represented the rebirth of the sun, a promise that even in the darkest hour, light would return. Newgrange may have served as a ceremonial place where this cosmic renewal was celebrated. The chamber could have been a sacred space where the spirits of the dead awaited rebirth, their journey mirrored in the path of the sun's light. In this interpretation, Newgrange becomes a bridge between the worlds of the living and the dead, between the cycles of nature and the cycles of human existence. The spiral carvings on the curbstone strengthen this interpretation. Spirals symbolize motion, cycles, and eternity. They reflect the rhythm of the seasons, the turning of the heavens, and perhaps the pattern of the human soul. When light fills the chamber on the solstice, it brings these symbols to life, connecting art, architecture, and cosmic timing in a single dramatic event. Such sophistication demonstrates that Neolithic people possessed not only technical skill but a profound philosophical worldview. Yet Newgrange is not merely a tomb or an observatory, it is also a testament to community. Building it required the cooperation of hundreds, perhaps thousands, of people over many years. Stones had to be quarried, transported, carved, and placed with care. The mound itself required tons of earth and stone. This effort reveals a society organized around shared belief, capable of long-term projects motivated by ritual and meaning. Newgrange was not the work of a single ruler or elite class. It was a communal achievement, shaped by generations united in purpose. Walking through Newgrange today, one can sense the lingering presence of those ancient builders. The cool air inside the passage feels untouched by time. The stones, some embedded with quartz and granite, shimmer softly in the dim light. Outside, the Boyne Valley stretches wide, filled with other ancient mounds and standing stones. This landscape was once a ceremonial heartland, a sacred geography where life and death intertwined. Newgrange was its crown jewel, a monument that captured the essence of human spirituality in stone. Modern solstice celebrations at Newgrange reflect this enduring connection. Each year, thousands apply for the chance to stand in the chamber during the sunrise, though only a handful are selected. Those who witness it describe it as a transformative experience, an encounter with a past that still speaks. Even when clouds obscure the light, the anticipation alone is powerful. It reminds us that, like our ancestors, we are still governed by the movements of the heavens, still seeking meaning in cycles of darkness and light. As we leave Newgrange in our journey across the world's megalithic wonders, we carry with us the profound lesson its builders left, that darkness is not the end but a beginning. That renewal is woven into the fabric of the cosmos. That ancient people, though separated from us by thousands of years, understood something essential about existence. And that stone, when shaped by purpose, can hold the light of the sun, and the hopes of a civilization, for millennia. In the vast emptiness of the Sahara, where dunes shift like waves and silence stretches across horizons untouched by time, lies a circle of stones that once held the sky in its grasp. Long before Egypt's pyramids rose from the Nile Valley, long before pharaohs claimed divine descent, a community of pastoral people living at Nabta Playa built one of the world's earliest known astronomical observatories. Today, it appears modest, small stones arranged in circles and lines across a barren, sun-scorched basin. But its significance is monumental. Nabta Playa reveals that even in the harshest environments, early humans found ways to study the heavens and weave cosmic understanding into their daily lives. At first glance, the stones seem simple, upright slabs, some weathered into irregular shapes, standing quietly against the desert wind. But these megaliths were placed with intention. Archaeological studies show that the alignments correspond to key celestial events, particularly the summer solstice, the moment when the sun stands at its highest point and signals the beginning of seasonal rains. For a people dependent on cattle herding and seasonal water sources, the ability to predict rainfall was not merely scientific curiosity, it was survival. Around 7,000 years ago, Nabta Playa was not the lifeless desert it is today. It was a seasonal lake surrounded by grasslands, where nomadic groups gathered during the wet months. Over generations, these communities observed the patterns of the sun and stars, noticing how certain alignments predicted the return of life-giving rains. Their stone circle became a tool of astronomical precision, an African counterpart to later structures like Stonehenge, but more ancient and arguably more crucial to daily life. The central stone circle at Nabta Playa is particularly intriguing. Its design includes lines of sight that align with rising stars such as Sirius, one of the most important celestial markers for ancient African societies. Sirius, known later in Egypt as the star whose appearance heralded the Nile flood, likely played a similar role for the people of Nabta Playa. The star's heliacal rising would have signaled the return of rains to the desert, guiding pastoral migrations and ritual gatherings. Standing in the desert today, one cannot help but imagine the ceremonies that once unfolded on this ancient playa. People may have gathered around the stones during solstices, marking the turning of the seasons with song, dance, and offerings. Fires would have flickered in the night, illuminating the stones as elders traced the patterns of the stars overhead. For these early communities, the sky was not separate from their lives, it was a guide, a teacher, a sacred calendar written in light. But the megaliths at Nabta Playa are not only aligned with the heavens, they also reflect social structure and communal cooperation. The stones were transported from quarries miles away, requiring planning, effort, and shared purpose. Some stones weigh several tons, suggesting a coordinated workforce and a society capable of organizing large-scale projects long before written language or centralized leadership. The construction of the stone circle marks a shift in human behavior, small groups working together to create something enduring, something tied not just to practical needs but to belief and identity. As the climate changed and the Sahara grew increasingly arid, the once fertile region around Nabta Playa could no longer sustain life. The pastoral groups who built the stone circle eventually moved toward the Nile Valley, bringing with them their knowledge of astronomy, social organization, and ritual. Many scholars now believe that the intellectual seeds planted at Nabta Playa contributed to the rise of early Egyptian civilization. The celestial alignments, cattle symbolism, and sacred landscapes seen in Egypt may trace their origins back to this humble stone circle in the desert. This possibility transforms the meaning of Nabta Playa. It is not just a remote megalithic site, it is a missing chapter in the story of human development. A chapter that shows how ideas born in the desert shaped some of the greatest monuments in the world. When we look at the alignment of the pyramids, the solar temples, the obsessions with cycles and rebirth in ancient Egypt, we may be seeing echoes of the traditions that began here, beneath the Saharan stars. Yet for all its importance, Nabta Playa remains largely unknown to the world. The site is remote, difficult to access, and vulnerable to erosion. Many of the stones lie half buried in shifting sands, their inscriptions long erased by wind and time. But despite this fragility, the stones still stand as a testament to humanity's earliest attempts to understand the cosmos. They whisper a truth older than civilization, that even with simple tools and limited resources, humans have always looked upward, searching for patterns that give meaning to life. To stand at Nabta Playa is to feel the weight of that ancient curiosity. The desert is silent, but the sky is alive. As the sun sets, shadows stretch across the stones, aligning in patterns invisible at midday. At night, the stars emerge in dazzling clarity, untouched by modern lights. The Milky Way spills across the sky like a river of fire. One can easily imagine the ancient people lying on the desert floor, tracing constellations, marking cycles, and anchoring their knowledge in stone. As we leave this hidden observatory behind, we are reminded of the resilience and ingenuity of early humans. Nabta Playa is a symbol of their determination to find order in the vastness of nature. It shows us that intelligence is not measured by technology but by observation, patience, and the ability to transform knowledge into survival. And it reminds us that even in places where life seems impossible, human imagination thrives, shaping stone, shaping belief, shaping the future. Deep within the tropical lowlands of ancient Mesoamerica, where humidity clings to the air and thick forests conceal the remnants of early civilizations, the Olmec left behind some of the most striking and enigmatic monuments in human history, the colossal heads. These massive stone sculptures, carved between 1200 and 400 BCE, stand as silent sentinels of a civilization that predated the Maya, the Aztec, and countless others that would follow. Each head, carved from a single basalt boulder, bears the face of a ruler whose identity has been swallowed by time. Their expressions are stern, monumental, and uncannily lifelike. To gaze upon them is to feel as though the past is staring back, watchful, powerful, and utterly mysterious. The Olmec heads are immense. Some reach over 3 meters in height and weigh between 6 and 50 tons. Their scale alone raises questions about the society that created them. The basalt used to carve these giants came from the distant Tuxtla Mountains, sometimes over 60 miles away. Transporting such massive stones across rivers, swamps, and dense jungles required extraordinary coordination. The Olmec had no beasts of burden, no metal tools, and no wheeled vehicles. Yet they moved these monoliths with a skill and determination that continue to astonish archaeologists. Once transported, the boulders were shaped into monumental portraits using stone hammers, abrasives, and remarkable patience. Each head is unique, distinguished by facial features that range from proud and commanding to contemplative and stern. The helmets carved on many of the heads suggest ceremonial dress or the regalia of rulership, perhaps symbolizing spiritual or political authority. These details hint at a sophisticated society organized around leadership, ritual, and identity, though much of the Olmec worldview remains lost. The prevailing theory is that these heads represent rulers, possibly deified leaders who held both political and religious power. The Olmec, often referred to as the mother culture of Mesoamerica, influenced many later societies through their iconography, mythology, and artistic styles. But the colossal heads remain their most enduring legacy. These faces capture not only authority but character. Some display a calm dignity, others seem stern or intense, as if carved with respect for the responsibilities of power. This realism suggests an early understanding of portraiture, indicating that the Olmec saw value in preserving the individuality of their leaders. One of the most captivating elements of these heads is their orientation. Many were originally placed facing toward the edges of ceremonial plazas, as if watching over gatherings, rituals, or processions. Some scholars believe they served as guardians of important sites, standing between the people and the spiritual world. Their placement may have aligned with celestial markers, natural features, or sacred pathways. In this sense, the colossal heads were not just sculptures, they were participants in the spiritual life of the Olmec. But as with many ancient cultures, the Olmec story is fragmented. Much of their writing system is undeciphered, and few of their settlements have survived intact. What we know comes from scattered ruins, pottery, symbols carved in jade, and the lingering echoes of their influence on later civilizations. This makes the colossal heads even more compelling. They are among the few unmistakable voices the Olmec left behind, voices carved in stone rather than written words. The faces also challenge our assumptions about ancient people. Their features are diverse, expressive, and undeniably human. Some heads have broad noses and full lips, others have narrower features, suggesting a society that celebrated individuality rather than adhering to a single idealized form. The helmets, ear ornaments, and carved straps add layers of meaning, hinting at rituals, warfare, or athletic ceremonies such as the Mesoamerican ball game. Each detail invites speculation but resists definitive interpretation, preserving the aura of mystery that surrounds the Olmec world. Transporting the basalt boulders from the Tuxtla Mountains required a profound level of social organization. Scholars believe the Olmec may have used rafts along river systems to move the stones part of the way, while others were dragged across land using log rollers and coordinated labor teams. These efforts imply not only physical strength but communal dedication. A society willing to invest such resources into monumental sculptures must have had strong leadership, shared beliefs, and a deep sense of identity. Yet despite their achievements, the Olmec civilization eventually declined. Environmental changes, shifts in trade networks, and possibly internal conflict contributed to their disappearance. Their cities fell silent, their temples crumbled, and their elite hierarchies dissolved. But the colossal heads endured. Some were buried, perhaps intentionally, as offerings or acts of reverence. Others were toppled or damaged. Still, many survived intact, waiting beneath layers of earth for modern discovery. When archaeologists unearthed these immense faces in the 19th and 20th centuries, the world was stunned. Here were lifelike portrayals created centuries before the rise of classical Greece, demonstrating technical skills that rival far later cultures. Their presence reshaped our understanding of ancient Mesoamerica, proving that long before the Maya built their pyramids, the Olmec were crafting monuments of astonishing sophistication. Today, standing before an Olmec head is an unsettling and awe-inspiring experience. Their expressions seem filled with presence, as though the rulers they portray still watch over the landscape. Sunlight highlights the contours of their cheeks, lips, and brows, bringing their features to life in shifting patterns of shadow and light. They radiate a sense of authority that transcends time, reminding us that leadership, identity, and cultural memory are as ancient as civilization itself. As we journey onward through the world's megalithic wonders, the colossal heads leave us with a powerful realization that even without written records, ancient people carved their stories into the land. They expressed power, belief, and individuality in ways that resonate thousands of years later. These stone faces stand as guardians of a forgotten world, silent yet eloquent, mysterious yet profoundly human. On the sun-drenched islands of Malta and Gozo, surrounded by the sapphire waters of the Mediterranean, stand some of the oldest freestanding stone temples in the world. Long before the pyramids rose on the banks of the Nile, long before Stonehenge crowned the Salisbury Plain, the prehistoric people of Malta were raising colossal trilithons and curving temple walls with astonishing precision. These ancient structures, Hagar Kim, Gantija, Najdra, and others, form a sacred landscape that feels both alien and deeply human, as though the stones themselves carry echoes from a forgotten chapter of humanity's early imagination. The people who built these temples lived more than 5,500 years ago, a time when most of Europe still consisted of small farming communities without monumental architecture. Yet on Malta, an island not even 20 miles across, a flourishing and sophisticated culture emerged, one that carved enormous limestone blocks, some weighing over 20 tons, and arranged them in complex multi-room temples aligned with celestial events. The sheer ambition behind these constructions reveals a society with shared purpose, spiritual depth, and a profound understanding of their environment. Approaching a Maltese temple is like stepping into a world where organic curves and geometric symmetry coexist seamlessly. The walls sweep gracefully into apses, rounded chambers that resemble the interior of a womb or the embrace of a mother's arms. This architectural style, unique to Malta, gives the structures an almost living quality, as if the temples were designed not merely as buildings but as symbolic bodies. Many scholars believe the temples were dedicated to goddess worship, fertility, and cycles of life and death. Figurines discovered within depict rounded female forms, suggesting reverence for creation and continuity. But it is the trilithons, massive stone gateways composed of two uprights supporting a lintel, that define the monumental presence of these temples. They are not as towering as Stonehenge's trilithons, yet they carry equal symbolic weight. Each gateway serves as a threshold, guiding visitors from the outer world into progressively more sacred spaces. Passing beneath a trilithon was likely a ceremonial act, marking one's transition from ordinary existence into the realm of divine mystery. These gateways create a rhythm of movement, inviting participants to journey deeper into the temple's symbolic heart. The builders of Malta's temples were master craftsmen. Working with soft yet durable limestone, they carved blocks with clarity and smoothness that still astonish modern engineers. Their knowledge of stress distribution, interlocking stone joints, and architectural stability reveals generations of accumulated expertise. Unlike many other ancient sites that relied on brute force or simple stacking, the Maltese temples show thoughtful design, doorways framed with precision, altars shaped with intention, floors paved with carefully fitted slabs. What makes these structures even more extraordinary is their astronomical alignment. At Najdra, for example, the temple's entrance is perfectly aligned so that the rising sun on the solstices shines directly into specific chambers. During the equinoxes, sunlight streams through the doorway to illuminate particular stones, creating a breathtaking spectacle of light and shadow. This interplay suggests a deep understanding of solar cycles and a desire to weave cosmic rhythms into ritual life. The temples were not just sacred buildings, they were instruments that interacted with the sky. And yet, despite their sophistication, the people who built these temples left no written records. Their language, myths, and beliefs remain unknown. What we know comes from pottery shards, bone fragments, figurines, and the temples themselves, silent witnesses to a civilization that vanished mysteriously around 2500 BCE. The reasons for their disappearance remain debated. Some scholars suggest environmental degradation or resource exhaustion, others point to disease or changes in climate. What is certain is that the culture that once thrived on Malta faded, leaving its monumental structures behind like abandoned shells. Walking through Gantija, the name itself meaning, the place of the giants, one can feel why early inhabitants believed supernatural beings must have built the temples. The stones are massive, arranged in layers that rise higher than any simple village society should have been able to achieve. Yet archaeological evidence shows that ordinary people, with simple tools and unwavering determination, constructed these megaliths. This realization invites a sense of admiration for the community spirit that must have bound the builders together. The temples also show signs of ongoing modification, with later generations expanding or reconfiguring earlier structures. This continuity suggests that the temples were not static monuments but living centers of ritual life. Generations likely returned to these sacred places to perform ceremonies, honor ancestors, offer gifts, or mark seasonal transitions. The stones absorbed these moments, becoming repositories of communal memory. Despite the millennia that have passed, Malta's temples retain a haunting beauty. Sunlight warms their pale surfaces, casting long shadows that shift with the time of day. The sea wind carries the scent of salt and earth, swirling around the ancient doorways. Inside, the silence feels almost sacred, as though the air is thick with the presence of stories left untold. Visitors often describe a sense of peace and connection, a feeling that the stones themselves are alive with memory. The trilithons of Malta remind us that early humans were capable of extraordinary feats not because of advanced technology, but because of shared belief and communal effort. These temples reflect a worldview grounded in cycles: birth, growth, death, and renewal. They speak of a society that saw itself woven into the fabric of nature, honoring the sun, the seasons, and the mysteries of existence. As we leave the Maltese Islands on our journey through the world's ancient megaliths, we carry with us the quiet wisdom of these primordial builders. Their temples whisper that even in a world without writing, without metal, without cities, humans could create monumental beauty. And they remind us that time may erase civilizations, but meaning, carved into stone, can endure for thousands of years. In the golden desert west of the Nile, where sunlight turns sand into shimmering waves and silence stretches across the horizon like a veil, rise the most iconic monuments ever built by human hands, the Pyramids of Giza. For more than 4,500 years, these colossal structures have stood unchanged against storms, invasions, shifting dynasties, and the collapse of entire civilizations. They are not simply tombs, they are the embodiment of an idea, an attempt to impose perfect order on a chaotic world. To stand at their base is to face the staggering realization that ancient people, armed with simple tools and boundless belief, engineered structures that still defy modern understanding. The Great Pyramid of Khufu, the largest of the three, was once sheathed in gleaming white limestone that reflected the sun so brilliantly it could be seen for miles. Today, much of that casing is gone, but the underlying geometry remains flawless. Each side is aligned almost perfectly to the cardinal directions, deviating by only fractions of a degree. The base is nearly level across all sides, despite its immense scale. More than 2 million individual blocks were used, some weighing several tons, and yet the structure fits together with such precision that a sheet of paper cannot slide between many of the blocks. How did ancient Egyptians achieve such mastery? The answer lies not only in engineering but in the worldview that guided their every action. The Egyptians believed the universe was born from chaos and that only through balance, Ma'at, could life continue. Ma'at was order, truth, and harmony. It governed everything from the movement of stars to the decisions of rulers. Building a pyramid was not merely a political statement, it was an act of cosmic stabilization. A pyramid was a physical manifestation of Ma'at, anchoring divine order to the earth. The pyramids were part of a larger ceremonial landscape. The Giza Plateau included temples, causeways, satellite pyramids, and the enigmatic Sphinx. Each structure played a role in guiding the pharaoh's soul from death to rebirth. The pyramid's shape, a perfect geometric form rising toward the heavens, symbolized the primordial mound from which creation emerged. Its smooth sides once acted like ramps for the king's spirit, guiding him into the sky to join the gods. The layout reflected celestial patterns, most notably the belt stars of the constellation Orion, associated with Osiris, the god of the afterlife. But beyond symbolism lies the very real labor of tens of thousands of workers. Contrary to old theories of slave labor, evidence now shows that the pyramids were built by skilled workers, organized into teams with rotating schedules. Workers' villages uncovered near the pyramids paint a vivid picture of life during construction: bakeries, breweries, medical facilities, and workshops. These people were not forced, they were part of a national effort, united in the belief that building the pharaoh's eternal home ensured the well-being of the entire kingdom. The logistics of pyramid construction remain one of archaeology's greatest puzzles. How were the massive blocks transported? Some believe they were dragged on sledges over lubricated pathways, others propose wooden rollers or water-based transport along canals. Recent discoveries suggest that the Nile flowed much closer to the pyramids than it does today, allowing stones to be delivered by boat. Ramps, straight, zigzagging, or spiraling, likely played a key role in raising the blocks. Despite countless theories, the exact method remains elusive, preserving the pyramid's aura of mystery. Inside the Great Pyramid lies another realm of intrigue. Narrow shafts ascend through the structure, aligned with stars or specific celestial events. The Queen's Chamber, King's Chamber, and the enigmatic Grand Gallery show master craftsmanship and a deep understanding of pressure distribution. The King's Chamber is constructed from massive granite blocks quarried from Aswan, hundreds of miles away. Above it lie relieving chambers designed to divert weight, an engineering solution far ahead of its time. The entire interior feels deliberate, as if designed with both physical and spiritual functions in mind. The Sphinx, carved from bedrock near the pyramids, adds to the site's enigma. Its lion body and human head face the rising sun, symbolizing power, protection, and divine kingship. Weathering patterns have sparked debates about its true age, with some claiming it predates the pyramids by millennia. Whether or not this theory holds, the Sphinx remains a powerful guardian of the Giza Plateau, watching silently as centuries pass. Yet for all their grandeur, the pyramids also carry whispers of humility. Their immense scale reminds us of humanity's desire to reach beyond mortality. They are monuments to ambition, yes, but also to fear, the fear of being forgotten, of returning to the chaos from which the world was born. The pharaohs built pyramids not out of vanity, but out of a belief that their death threatened cosmic balance. By ensuring their safe journey to the afterlife, they ensured the sun would rise, the Nile would flood, and the world would remain in harmony. Modern visitors standing before the pyramids often feel a strange mixture of awe and vulnerability. The stones radiate heat in the midday sun, their surfaces worn smooth by millennia of desert wind. Shadows shift slowly across their faces, marking time with a patience incomprehensible to human lifespans. The pyramids dwarf everything around them, cars, buildings, even cities. They are reminders that human civilizations, with all their achievements and failures, are momentary compared to the endurance of stone. But the pyramids are not just relics, they are active teachers. They reveal the extraordinary capabilities of coordinated human effort. They show that societies can be united by shared vision. They demonstrate how belief, when combined with skill and organization, can produce wonders that transcend time. And they remind us that humanity's desire to impose order on chaos is as ancient as civilization itself. Today, scientists continue to uncover new chambers, hidden voids, and structural secrets inside the pyramids using technologies like muon tomography and 3D scanning. Each new discovery renews our sense of wonder and challenges long-held assumptions. Yet the pyramids resist total understanding, as if they were built not just for the ancient Egyptians but for future generations, an eternal puzzle meant to inspire curiosity. As we move forward on our journey through the world's megalithic wonders, the pyramids stand as a towering testament to what human belief and ingenuity can achieve. They are anchors of time, reminders of our deep desire to create meaning, structure, and eternity in a world that constantly shifts. They teach us that even amid the unpredictable chaos of life, humans have always reached upward, toward the sky, toward the gods, toward the unknown. Off the coast of Japan's Yonaguni Island, where the Pacific Ocean deepens into endless blue and currents sweep across the seafloor with ancient force, lies one of the most debated structures in the world. Known as the Yonaguni Monument, this underwater formation looks uncannily like a sunken city, terraces, platforms, sharp-edged steps, and towering walls rising from the deep. For decades, divers, geologists, and archaeologists have argued over its origins. Is it a natural geological formation shaped by time and tides? Or is it the submerged memory of a prehistoric civilization lost to rising seas? The answer remains elusive, suspended somewhere between science and myth. Discovered in 1986 by a local diver, the monument sits nearly 30 feet below the surface. Its massive sandstone formations form geometric patterns so precise that they seem intentionally carved. Long staircases descend into the depths as if once walked by ancient feet. Straight-edged walls run parallel like the remains of ancient streets. Large platforms appear polished, as though used for ceremonies or gatherings. These features have fueled speculation that the monument may be the remnants of a lost city swallowed by the ocean thousands of years ago. Supporters of the man-made theory point to several striking characteristics. The monument displays right angles, flat surfaces, terraces, and what appear to be large pillars or columns, features rarely produced by natural erosion. A massive staircase-like structure rises from the seabed, leading to a broad platform resembling a ceremonial plaza. Some divers report seeing what looks like carvings or tool marks on certain surfaces. These elements evoke the architectural style of ancient Japanese castles or even structures reminiscent of early Southeast Asian temples. If intentional, the Yonaguni monument would be tens of thousands of years older than any known megalithic structure in Japan. However, nature is capable of extraordinary precision. Geologists argue that the region's sandstone layers fracture along well-defined plains, creating the appearance of steps and terraces. Earthquakes, common in this tectonically active region, can shift and break rock formations into angular shapes. Over millennia, ocean currents and wave action polish these surfaces, giving them an uncanny resemblance to human workmanship. In this interpretation, the Yonaguni monument is a geological marvel, not a human creation. Yet the debate persists because the monument does not fit neatly into either explanation. Its size, over 150 meters long and 40 meters wide, seems immense for a natural formation. Its symmetry is suspicious. Some parts look unmistakably architectural, while others are rugged and organic. Even the surrounding seabed features mysterious arrangements of stones that some claim resemble walls or structures. Could it be a mix, a natural formation later modified by humans? Or the eroded remains of structures built on a natural foundation? The possibility of a lost civilization beneath the waves only deepens the intrigue. During the last ice age, sea levels were far lower, exposing large areas now underwater. Yonaguni itself was connected to a landmass stretching toward Taiwan. If an early society settled there, rising seas at the end of the Ice Age could have submerged their settlements. This scenario has fueled theories of forgotten maritime cultures, lost coastal cities, and prehistoric achievements erased by environmental change. While such stories often border on myth, they reflect a truth: much of human prehistory may lie hidden beneath the oceans. For divers, descending to the Yonaguni monument is an unforgettable experience. Sunlight filters down through clear water, illuminating angular stone surfaces that appear both ancient and otherworldly. Fish dart through the cracks, and coral clings to sharp edges. From certain angles, the monument resembles a stepped pyramid rising from the seafloor; from others, it looks like a fortress collapsed by time. The scale is overwhelming, making any human presence feel tiny and fleeting. The ocean's silence adds a layer of mystery, amplifying the feeling that this place holds secrets older than memory. One of the most striking features, often called the terrace, resembles a large stage or plaza with defined edges. Nearby lies what some divers refer to as the turtle, a formation that seems intentionally shaped. The grand steps, a massive stair-like formation, descend in evenly spaced levels. Each structure fuels speculation and wonder. Are these natural erosional products? Or were they once part of a shoreline complex used for ritual, governance, or community gatherings before the sea reclaimed them? Regardless of its origin, the Yonaguni monument reveals something profound about human perception. We instinctively search for meaning, pattern, and story. When we see straight lines, we imagine architects. When we see platforms, we imagine ceremonies. When we see submerged structures, we imagine lost civilizations. Our minds are drawn to narrative, even when the truth is ambiguous. The monument challenges us to question our assumptions and to accept that some mysteries may remain unresolved. But perhaps the greatest lesson Yonaguni teaches is about impermanence. Whether carved by hands or shaped by nature, the monument lies beneath the ocean because the world has changed dramatically over millennia. Seas have risen, climates have shifted, and entire coastlines have disappeared. If a civilization once flourished here, its disappearance reminds us that nothing, no matter how monumental, is immune to time and nature's vast cycles. For modern researchers, the site remains a tantalizing frontier. Every year, new surveys, 3D models, and geological studies add pieces to the puzzle. Yet the mystery persists. The monument sits at the crossroads of science, archaeology, geology, and imagination. It is both a natural wonder and a cultural enigma, a place where competing interpretations coexist without resolution. As we continue our journey across the world's megalithic landscapes, the Yonaguni monument stands as a reminder that the earth holds countless secrets, many still hidden beneath waves, deserts, and jungles. Whether built by ancient hands or sculpted by nature's artistry, it stirs the human spirit, the desire to explore, to question, to wonder. Beneath the ocean's surface lies a story waiting to be understood, a story carved in stone and carried by the tides. On the windswept Isle of Lewis, in the far reaches of Scotland's Outer Hebrides, a ring of ancient stones rises from the mossy earth like a gathering of silent elders. These are the standing stones of Callanish, one of the most haunting and atmospheric megalithic sites in the world. Here, where Atlantic storms crash against rocky shores and the sky stretches endlessly in shades of gray and gold, the stones stand tall and resolute, their weathered surfaces shaped by 5 millennia of wind and rain. They feel alive, as if guarding memories of ceremonies long forgotten and truths whispered by generations that lived in deep harmony with land and sky. Callanish is unique among stone circles. Instead of a simple ring, the site forms a cruciform shape, a central circle with long avenues of stone stretching north, south, east, and west. These stone arms give the site a dramatic presence, creating the impression of a giant stone cross or a celestial compass etched into the landscape. The layout suggests an intimate relationship with the sky, and many scholars believe Callanish functioned as an astronomical observatory, ritual site, and spiritual gathering place. Walking among the stones, one immediately senses their scale and intention. Some stand over 4 meters tall, angled slightly as if leaning into the wind. Their surfaces are flecked with quartz, catching and reflecting sunlight in shimmering glints that make them appear almost luminous at dawn and dusk. The surrounding hills cradle the circle like a natural amphitheater, and to the west, the horizon forms the iconic outline of the Sleeping Beauty, a mountain formation resembling a woman lying on her back. This silhouette plays a crucial role in Callanish's astronomical mysteries. During the summer solstice, something extraordinary happens. The full moon, at its most extreme northern rise, appears to skim along the contours of the Sleeping Beauty before rising directly behind the Callanish stones. This lunar event, which occurs only once every 18.6 years, transforms the site into a breathtaking cosmic stage. Ancient people who built Callanish likely tracked this cycle for generations, marking the moon's journey with ceremonies that merged astronomy, myth, and human emotion. Such meticulous alignment reveals not only observational skill but deep spiritual reverence for the moon's power. It is easy to imagine ancient gatherings here, torches flickering in the night, chants carried by the wind, and people watching the moon glide across the sky as if performing a dance written into the land itself. The stones would have stood like silent witnesses as communities celebrated fertility, harvest cycles, and the turning of seasons. Callanish may have been a place where the boundaries between earth and sky blurred, where rituals anchored cosmic rhythms into human experience. Yet the site's significance extended beyond astronomy. Callanish was likely a monumental center of social and spiritual life for the Neolithic people of the Outer Hebrides. Evidence of nearby dwellings, pottery, and burial cairns suggests a thriving community deeply connected to this ceremonial landscape. The stones marked not just celestial events but moments of human passage, births, deaths, alliances, offerings. They were not passive monuments, they were active participants in the community's most sacred traditions. The builders of Callanish faced a harsh environment. The Outer Hebrides are known for relentless winds, intense storms, and long, dark winters. Yet instead of retreating from this rugged landscape, ancient people embraced it, weaving nature's power into their architecture. The stones stand as defiant yet respectful acknowledgments of the forces that shaped their lives. Their placement reflects not only technical skill but an emotional understanding of the land, a relationship far deeper than mere survival. By the time the Bronze Age arrived, Callanish's importance began to fade. Peat bogs gradually enveloped parts of the site, burying some stones up to their necks. This encroachment suggests a slow shift in cultural priorities or perhaps environmental changes that made the area less accessible. Yet even as the monument fell into partial obscurity, its presence remained etched into local memory. Stories and legends sprung up around it, tales of giants turned to stone for refusing to convert to Christianity, or of enchanted beings who danced among the stones at night. These myths preserve the sense of awe the site has always inspired. Modern visitors often describe Callanish as otherworldly. The wind whistles between the stones, carrying the scent of sea and heather. The ground feels ancient beneath one's feet, textured with peat and grass. Standing within the circle, one feels enveloped by a deep silence that seems older than human history. The stones, though static, create a sense of movement, an invisible flow of energy shaped by geometry, placement, and orientation. It is as though the entire site breathes with the rhythm of earth and sky. Unlike many megalithic sites, Callanish has escaped the overwhelming crowds that gather at places like Stonehenge. Here, solitude remains possible. One can wander alone among the stones, feeling the weight of millennia collapse into a single moment. At sunrise or sunset, the light transforms everything into gold, and shadows stretch long across the ground like ancient arms reaching through time. It is impossible not to feel humbled, connected, and deeply aware of humanity's fragile place in the universe. The standing stones of Callanish remind us that ancient people were not merely building structures, they were building relationships. Relationships with the land, with the heavens, with their ancestors, and with the mysteries that governed existence. They created monuments that reflected their deepest understanding of life's cycles, weaving cosmic knowledge into the very soil beneath their feet. As we leave the Outer Hebrides and continue our journey through humanity's greatest megaliths, the Callanish stones linger in our memory like a whisper. They speak of devotion, of observation, of patience measured in moon cycles rather than years. And they remind us that even in the most remote places, ancient people sought to understand their place in the cosmos, crafting monuments that still guide our imagination thousands of years later. On the edge of the Giza Plateau, where desert sands meet the timeless geometry of the pyramids, lies a monument carved not from assembled blocks but from living bedrock. The Great Sphinx, half lion and half human, stretches 240 feet across the sand and rises more than 60 feet high. Its enormous paws extend forward as if ready to leap, while its human face, once painted in vibrant colors, gazes eternally toward the rising sun. Majestic, enigmatic, and weathered by the ages, the Sphinx is one of the most haunting symbols of ancient Egypt, a guardian carved at the threshold between worlds. The true purpose and age of the Sphinx have been subjects of debate for centuries. Most Egyptologists attribute its construction to Pharaoh Khafre, around 2500 BCE, believing the statue was carved to guard his pyramid complex. Yet some scholars argue the erosion patterns on the Sphinx's body suggest exposure to heavy rainfall thousands of years earlier, long before Egypt became the desert landscape we know. This theory implies an age older than the pyramids, hinting at lost chapters of civilization. Whether sculpted by Khafre's artisans or by a much earlier culture, the Sphinx's presence radiates an ancient authority that defies precise dating. Carving the Sphinx required extraordinary skill. Workers chiseled the figure directly out of the limestone plateau, shaping the lion's body, the massive paws, and the human head from a single continuous mass of stone. This technique created a structure far more stable than anything built from stacked blocks. Around the Sphinx, workers quarried trenches to free the statue from surrounding rock, using the excavated stone to build nearby temples. The monument's original face likely resembled Khafre's features, adorned with a royal headdress and possibly a ceremonial beard, elements that symbolized divine kingship. But the Sphinx was more than a portrait, it was a symbol of power. In Egyptian mythology, the lion represented strength, protection, and control over chaos. By giving the lion a human face, specifically that of a pharaoh, the builders fused divine authority with earthly rule. The Sphinx became a guardian of the necropolis, a protector of sacred pathways, and a mediator between the living and the eternal. Its positioning on the east-west axis connected it to the cosmic cycle of the sun, reinforcing themes of death, rebirth, and the eternal journey of the soul. One of the most extraordinary features of the Sphinx is its alignment with the rising sun. During the equinox, the sun appears to rise almost directly above the Sphinx's shoulder, illuminating its face in a golden glow. Such precision suggests careful astronomical planning. For ancient Egyptians, the horizon, Ake, was not simply a physical boundary but a spiritual gateway where the sun god Ra was reborn every morning. The Sphinx, facing this sacred horizon, served as a monumental witness to the sun's daily resurrection, reinforcing Egypt's central belief in cyclical renewal. Surrounding the Sphinx are structures that deepen its mystery. The Sphinx Temple, built from blocks carved from around the statue, contains massive pillars and altar-like spaces that some believe were used for solar rituals. Nearby lies the Valley Temple, an astonishing feat of ancient engineering where enormous granite blocks were fitted with precision. These buildings suggest the Sphinx was part of a grand ritual complex rather than a standalone sculpture. They hint at ceremonies involving purification, transformation, or the ascension of the pharaoh's spirit to the realm of the gods. Throughout history, the Sphinx has undergone periods of neglect and rediscovery. Ancient records indicate that drifting sands periodically buried the statue up to its neck. Pharaoh Thutmose IV, according to the dream stele placed between the Sphinx's paws, fell asleep in its shadow and dreamed that the Sphinx promised him kingship if he freed it from encroaching sand. Thutmose cleared away the dunes and restored the monument, cementing the Sphinx's reputation as a figure of divine power and prophecy. Even in antiquity, its origins were partially forgotten, an enigma even to those who lived only a millennium or two after its creation. Time has not been kind to the Sphinx. Its nose is missing, broken off centuries ago, and parts of its headdress have eroded. Restoration efforts throughout history have attempted to preserve it, some causing more harm than good. The body shows deep fissures, evidence of wind erosion, sand abrasion, and perhaps ancient rainfall. Despite this, the Sphinx remains remarkably intact, an anchor of permanence in an ever-changing landscape. To stand before the Sphinx today is to feel a presence that transcends human scale. The desert wind carries whispers around its massive form. The surrounding plateau falls quiet, as though acknowledging its authority. From certain angles, the Sphinx seems contemplative, from others, it appears stern or watchful. Its expression is ambiguous, offering no easy answers, only silent questions that echo across centuries. What knowledge did its builders possess? What rituals were performed beneath its gaze? What stories have been lost to the drifting sands? For modern visitors, the Sphinx evokes a sense of wonder mixed with melancholy. It stands not only as a testament to ancient craftsmanship but as a symbol of the limits of our understanding. The more we study it, the more questions arise. Its face, though eroded, still conveys a hint of the personality it once bore. Its lion's body speaks of strength and guardianship. Its placement suggests a connection to cosmic rhythms that ancient Egyptians understood intuitively. The Sphinx is a bridge, between human and divine, between past and present, between earth and sky. It embodies the ancient Egyptian belief that life is an eternal cycle, a journey that does not end with death but transforms into something new. In this sense, the Sphinx is not merely a guardian of the horizon, it is a guardian of meaning itself. As we leave the Giza Plateau and continue our exploration of the world's great megaliths, the Sphinx lingers in our imagination like a stone dream, half animal, half god, entirely enigmatic. It reminds us that mystery is not something to solve but something to stand before with humility. And it teaches us that even the greatest works of humanity eventually return to silence, carried only by the enduring power of stone. In the arid plains of southern Peru, where the sun bakes the earth into shades of copper and gold, immense shapes etched into the desert floor stretch across the land like whispers meant for gods. These are the Nazca lines, geoglyphs so vast and precise that their true forms can only be fully seen from above. Spiders, hummingbirds, monkeys, whales, spirals, geometric grids, and long, ruler straight lines carve patterns into the landscape, some stretching for miles. Their creators, the ancient Nazca people, crafted these colossal drawings more than 1,500 years ago, leaving behind one of the world's greatest archaeological enigmas. Who were these messages for, and what story were they meant to tell? At ground level, the Nazca lines appear as shallow grooves, only a few inches deep. Their simplicity belies their grandeur. The Nazca removed the dark, iron-rich pebbles that blanket the desert surface, exposing the lighter-colored earth beneath. Because the region receives almost no rainfall, and winds are gentle, these lines have endured for centuries without significant erosion. They remain frozen in time, as crisp and clear as the day they were carved. The sheer scale of the Nazca lines is astonishing. Some figures stretch over 300 feet, the longest straight lines extend for more than 10 miles. The precision with which they are executed suggests careful planning, communal labor, and an understanding of large-scale design rarely seen in ancient cultures without writing. The Nazca had no aerial perspective, no vantage point from which to view their creations. Yet they achieved a level of accuracy that continues to puzzle experts. How did they design images so large that no person could see them fully from the ground? The most widely accepted theory is that they used grids and stakes, scaling small drawings into massive outlines through a methodical process. But even this explanation doesn't diminish the sense of wonder the lines inspire. The purpose of the Nazca lines remains a subject of enduring debate. Early theories were fantastical: alien runways, landing strips, messages to extraterrestrial beings. While these ideas capture the imagination, archaeological evidence points to more grounded interpretations rooted in the Nazca people's relationship with their harsh environment. The region is one of the driest places on Earth, and survival depended on an intimate knowledge of water sources, seasons, and weather patterns. Many scholars believe the lines functioned as ritual pathways, processional routes walked during ceremonies meant to invoke the gods who controlled water and fertility. Some lines may correspond to underground aquifers or align with celestial bodies marking seasonal changes. Indeed, the Nazca's connection to the sky appears woven into the landscape. Some figures align with solstices or the rising and setting of specific stars. Others may represent constellations or mythical beings associated with the heavens. The hummingbird, for instance, could symbolize renewal, migration, or the return of rain-bringing winds. The monkey, with its spiraling tail, may represent cycles or cosmic patterns. The spiral, one of the most common motifs, echoes both water movement and celestial rotation. The Nazca lines, in this interpretation, are not merely drawings but sacred maps meant to harmonize the earth with the sky. Yet the mystery deepens when we consider the Nazca worldview. Their culture was steeped in ritual, sacrifice, and a profound respect for the forces that shaped their existence. The lines may have been offerings, a way to communicate with deities believed to inhabit the mountains, winds, or stars. Walking the lines could have been an act of devotion, a prayer etched not through words but through movement across the land. In this sense, the geoglyphs were not meant to be seen from above but experienced from within, like a cosmic labyrinth guiding participants through symbolic journeys. Archaeologists have discovered pottery fragments, ceremonial objects, and remnants of offerings near many of the lines, reinforcing the idea that these spaces were used for ritual gatherings. Some figures, such as the anthropomorphic owl man, suggest shamanic or mythic associations, perhaps representing beings who mediated between human and divine realms. The Nazca people may have believed that by walking these massive designs, they could invite divine favor, ensure the return of rains, or maintain cosmic balance. Still, the uniqueness of the Nazca lines invites speculation that goes beyond practical or ritual explanations. Their scale implies ambition, creativity, and a desire to inscribe meaning into the landscape itself. In a world dominated by desert and sky, the Nazca chose to create art on a scale that mirrored the vastness around them. Their geoglyphs reflect a profound sense of connection between humanity and nature, earth and cosmos, life and mystery. For modern travelers, viewing the Nazca lines is nothing short of surreal. From small aircraft, the desert transforms into a giant canvas. The hummingbird appears in perfect silhouette, wings extended. The spider's delicate legs stretch with mathematical precision. Geometric lines converge into patterns that seem almost modern in their minimalism. The sheer beauty of the images is striking, but so is their loneliness. The lines stretch across an empty desert, silent and motionless, as if waiting for the people who once walked them to return. UNESCO designated the Nazca lines a World Heritage Site, yet they remain vulnerable. Human activity, illegal mining, and modern roads have damaged sections of the geoglyphs. Conservation efforts strive to protect them, recognizing that their value lies not only in their age but in their ability to speak across millennia. They remind us that ancient people engaged in creative expression on scales that challenge our imagination. The Nazca lines also raise deeper questions about communication. What does it mean to create something so large that no human could view it in its entirety? Are messages always meant to be understood? Or does meaning transcend interpretation when inscribed with enough intention, devotion, and mystery? The Nazca may have created these geoglyphs for gods, for ancestors, for celestial forces, or simply for their own sense of wonder. As we leave the Peruvian desert and continue our journey through the world's megalithic marvels, the Nazca lines leave a lasting impression. They remind us that humanity has always sought to express its deepest hopes and fears through grand gestures. They show that even in the harshest environments, creativity thrives. And they whisper, in lines drawn across the earth, that some of the most profound messages are meant not to be read, but to be felt. High on the Andean plateau of Bolivia, more than 12,000 feet above sea level, lies one of the most perplexing and awe-inspiring archaeological sites in the world, Pumapunku. Here, the thin mountain air carries a sharp chill, and the horizon feels impossibly wide. Amid this stark landscape, giant stone blocks, some scattered, others precisely cut, rest like remnants of a civilization that dared to challenge the limits of stonecraft. Pumapunku is a place where geometry and mystery intertwine. Its blocks fit together with such astonishing precision that even modern engineers pause in disbelief, while its fragmented state adds an atmosphere of haunting incompleteness, as though a great idea was interrupted by time itself. Pumapunku forms part of the larger Tiwanaku complex, a ceremonial center that flourished between 500 and 1000 CE. Yet the craftsmanship of Pumapunku seems to exceed the abilities typically attributed to this era. The site contains some of the most finely worked stone pieces in the ancient world, massive blocks of red sandstone and andesite shaped into perfect angles, grooves, and interlocking forms. The stonework suggests not only advanced engineering but also a cultural emphasis on order, symmetry, and the transformation of raw stone into symbolic architecture. Perhaps the most iconic features of Pumapunku are the H-shaped blocks, monoliths carved with exacting geometrical detail. Each block is nearly identical in shape, with sharp interior and exterior angles that align perfectly with one another. These H-blocks appear to have been part of modular construction, as if the builders intended to assemble them like colossal three-dimensional puzzles. Their surfaces are so precise that, even after centuries of weathering, the cuts remain crisp and smooth. For ancient stonemasons working with simple tools, such precision seems nearly impossible. The sheer size of some blocks adds to the mystery. The largest stone at Pumapunku weighs around 130 tons, quarried from a location several miles away. Transporting such massive stones across rugged terrain and elevating them to this high plateau would have required ingenious methods, manpower, and coordination. How exactly this was achieved remains unclear. Some theories suggest rolling the stones on logs, though the region's sparse vegetation raises questions. Others propose sledges or a system of ramps. Whatever the method, the effort implies a society capable of large-scale planning and technological innovation. Yet Pumapunku is not merely an engineering enigma, it is also a spiritual landscape. The site likely served as an important ceremonial center for the Tiwanaku culture, who believed the world was shaped by sacred forces and who saw mountains, lakes, and stones as living beings infused with power. The precision-cut blocks may have symbolized cosmic order, mirroring the structure of the universe as the Tiwanaku understood it. Water channels carved into some stones suggest ritual purification or symbolic flows representing life, fertility, and the connection between worlds. One of the most debated aspects of Pumapunku is the apparent sophistication of its tools and construction techniques. The crisp right angles, perfectly drilled holes, and laser-like straight lines have sparked numerous theories. Some propose that the Tiwanaku used bronze tools enhanced with abrasive sand, while others believe they developed methods involving wooden templates or string-based measurement systems. More speculative explanations wander into the territory of lost technologies or vanished civilizations. But regardless of the tools used, the level of precision speaks to extraordinary skill, patience, and cultural dedication. What makes Pumapunku especially haunting is its fragmented state. Unlike many ancient monuments that stand intact, Pumapunku appears shattered. Blocks lie strewn across the site, toppled and separated, giving the impression of a dismantled structure, or a construction project halted suddenly. Some scholars suggest earthquakes may have caused the destruction, others believe later groups reused stones for new constructions. The disarray adds an air of mystery, as if the site is a puzzle with half its pieces missing, inviting endless interpretation. Walking through Pumapunku today evokes a sense of quiet wonder. The wind whistles through the ruins, carrying the scent of cold earth and distant snow. The stones cast long shadows across the ground, their geometric forms softened by centuries of exposure. Each block feels deliberate, as though carved with purpose even if its final arrangement is lost. Modern visitors often describe a strange feeling when standing amid the carefully cut stones, a sense of presence, as if the site remembers what it once was meant to be. Nearby lies Lake Titicaca, shimmering like a celestial mirror. In Tiwanaku mythology, the lake was the birthplace of the world, a portal between realms. The proximity of Pumapunku to this sacred body of water adds to the site's spiritual significance. It suggests that the architecture may have been designed to reflect mythic origins, embodying the idea of a reborn world emerging from cosmic waters. The sophisticated stonework becomes not just a display of engineering prowess but an expression of profound cosmological belief. Despite the Tiwanaku civilization's accomplishments, it eventually declined, likely due to climate change and shifts in trade networks. The site was abandoned, leaving its intricately carved stones exposed to the elements. Later groups, lacking the cultural context or tools to understand its construction, repurposed stones or left them untouched. And so Pumapunku became a monument to both achievement and loss, a testament to what humans can create and what time can erase. Modern research continues to uncover details about the site. Laser scanning, 3D modeling, and archaeological experiments aim to recreate how the stones were shaped and assembled. Each technological advance brings new insights, yet none fully dispel the mystery. Pumapunku remains an enigma, a place where precise geometry meets fragmented ruins, where engineering brilliance meets historical silence. As we leave the Andean highlands on our journey through the world's ancient megaliths, Pumapunku lingers in our imagination like a ghost of human ingenuity. It challenges our assumptions about ancient capabilities. It invites us to rethink what civilizations without metal machinery could achieve. And it reminds us that even in remote places, where the air is thin and the land unforgiving, cultures rose and flourished, carving their vision into stone with breathtaking skill. Across the rugged island of Sardinia, where steep mountains rise from the sea and ancient winds sweep across the rocky plains, stand thousands of mysterious stone towers known as nuraghi. These structures, circular, massive, and enduring, dot the landscape like the scattered footprints of a vanished civilization. Built between 1800 and 800 BCE by the Nuragic people, these towers once formed one of the most distinctive and enigmatic architectural traditions in the ancient Mediterranean. Today, their silent forms whisper of warriors, traders, rituals, and a society whose complexity rivals that of more famous ancient cultures, yet whose name has largely faded from history. A nurag is unlike any other stone monument in the world. Rising up to 20 meters tall, these towers were constructed using huge basalt or limestone blocks arranged in drystone fashion, without mortar, fitted with such precision that many have survived more than 3,000 years of storms, earthquakes, and erosion. The basic form is a truncated cone, with walls several meters thick and a central chamber roofed using a corbelled dome. Some nuraghi stand alone, solitary sentinels overlooking valleys or coastlines. Others form part of complex fortified villages, with multiple towers connected by walls, courtyards, and internal passageways. The purpose of these towers remains a topic of debate. Were they fortresses, temples, clan homes, or symbols of status? Perhaps they served all these roles at different times. Their elevated positions and sturdy construction suggest defensive functions, watching over trade routes, guarding fertile land, or warning against invasion. Yet many nuraghi contain altars, sacred wells, or ritual objects, hinting at religious significance. Some scholars believe these towers were both sanctuaries and strongholds, places where the spiritual and political aspects of nuragic life intertwined. To step inside a nurag is to step into a world shaped by stone and silence. Narrow corridors spiral upward, lit only by small openings carved through massive walls. The central chamber, cool and echoing, feels almost womb-like, its corbelled dome forming a perfect curve overhead. These spaces leave modern visitors wondering what ceremonies once filled them, chants resonating in the vaulted chambers, fires flickering against the stone, warriors gathering before setting out to sea. The Nuragic people left no written language, but their architecture speaks with an ancient voice. The Nuragic civilization was not isolated. Sardinia's location in the Mediterranean made it a crossroads for trade and cultural exchange. Bronze artifacts found on the island show connections with Mycenaean Greece, Cyprus, the Levant, and even regions as far as Iberia. The Nuragic people were skilled smiths, renowned for their intricate bronze figurines that depict warriors, chieftains, animals, ships, and gods. These tiny sculptures, finely detailed and expressive, offer glimpses into their society, its hierarchy, beliefs, and martial culture. Among the most fascinating figures from this era are the bronze warriors with horned helmets, round shields, and long swords. Their imagery is so striking that some have linked the Nuragic people to the mysterious sea peoples described in Egyptian records, seafaring raiders who attacked the eastern Mediterranean around 1200 BCE. While the connection remains debated, the Nuragic culture clearly possessed seafaring capabilities and interacted with complex networks of Mediterranean trade. The Nuraghi may have served as political centers for powerful clans who controlled maritime routes and inland territories. One particularly impressive site is Su Nuraxi in Baramini, a UNESCO World Heritage Site that showcases the sophistication of Nuragic engineering. This settlement consists of a central tower surrounded by 4 additional towers joined by defensive walls, forming a formidable fortress. Around it lies a large village of circular huts, wells, and meeting spaces. The complexity of Su Nuraxi reveals a deeply organized society capable of long-term construction projects, coordinated labor, and communal life. Yet despite their achievements, the Nuragic people left behind few explicit clues about their worldview. Their religion appears to have centered on natural elements, water, earth, the sun, and possibly venerated a mother goddess figure, reflecting ancient Mediterranean spiritual traditions. Sacred wells and water temples scattered across Sardinia suggest rituals connected to purification, fertility, and cosmic cycles. These structures display precise astronomical alignments, particularly with the moon, hinting at a sophisticated understanding of celestial rhythms. Over time, the Nuragic civilization shifted and evolved. Phoenician traders arrived on Sardinia's coasts, bringing new technologies and cultural influences. Later, the island came under Carthaginian control, then Roman rule. As foreign powers grew dominant, Nuragic traditions gradually faded. The great towers fell into neglect, some dismantled for building materials, others swallowed by vegetation or buried under centuries of soil. But many remain, standing silent among pastures and hills, their dark stone forms resisting time's erasure. Today, Sardinia's nuraghi continue to inspire archaeologists, historians, and travelers. They are remnants of a civilization both connected and mysterious, a culture that thrived in the shadows of larger empires yet produced architecture of remarkable strength and beauty. Visiting a nuragh evokes a blend of awe and curiosity. The stones feel ancient and wise, shaped by hands that lived long before written history. Their placement on windswept ridges or forested valleys gives each tower a sense of guardianship, as if watching over the island even now. The Nuragic people, though forgotten by name, carved their legacy into the land itself. Their towers, rising from Sardinia's rugged landscape, stand as testaments to communal identity, ingenuity, and resilience. Each nuragh is a reminder that even small societies, far from the centers of ancient power, could dream boldly and build monuments that endure. As we leave Sardinia behind and continue our journey through the world's enigmatic megaliths, the Nuragic towers remain imprinted on our imagination, dark, resilient, and quietly powerful. They remind us that history is not only written by great empires but by cultures whose stories survive in stone, waiting patiently for us to rediscover them. Far out in the western Pacific, on the remote island of Pohnpei in Micronesia, lies one of the most astonishing and mysterious archaeological sites ever built, Nan Madol. Often called the Venice of the Pacific, this ancient city is constructed atop a network of small coral islets connected by canals, forming a sprawling stone complex that rises from a shimmering lagoon. Massive basalt columns, some weighing up to 25 tons, were stacked and arranged to create temples, tombs, palaces, and ceremonial courtyards. Even in ruins, Nan Madol radiates an almost mythical presence, as though it once belonged to a world where gods and humans walked side by side. Nan Madol was the ceremonial and political center of the Sodalur dynasty, which ruled Pohnpei from around the 12th to the 17th century. But unlike typical island settlements, Nan Madol was not built on land, it was intentionally constructed over the water. The city spans more than 200 acres, with over 90 artificial islets formed by coral fill and framed with massive basalt walls. These towering walls, some rising more than 25 feet high, were created by stacking hexagonal columns of volcanic rock in intricate, crisscrossing patterns. The engineering skill required to transport and arrange these massive stones remains one of the greatest enigmas of the Pacific. The basalt used at Nan Madol came from quarries miles away, requiring transportation across rugged terrain and open water. Without wheels, cranes, or metal tools, the Sodalur people moved these enormous columns using methods still unknown. Oral traditions speak of supernatural assistance, flying stones, magical powers, or giants who helped build the city. While these tales reflect cultural memory rather than literal history, they highlight the awe the site inspired even among descendants of its builders. Nan Madol was more than a seat of political power, it was a sacred landscape designed with spiritual purpose. The Sodalur rulers established the city as a place where they could centralize authority, separate elite classes from commoners, and perform rituals believed to sustain cosmic and social order. The layout of the city reflects careful planning, ceremonial spaces aligned with environmental features, channels arranged for processions, and separate islets dedicated to specialized functions. One islet, Nandawas, contains a tomb complex with walls so precisely constructed that they still stand in near-perfect condition today. This was the burial site of rulers, a place of immense reverence where only priests and nobles were permitted. The canals between the islets served not only as transportation routes but as symbolic pathways. Moving through the city by canoe was part of its ceremonial choreography, creating an atmosphere of solemnity and ritual separation. Water played a crucial role in Micronesian cosmology, representing boundaries between realms, between life and death, human and divine. By building their city on water, the Sodalur may have been attempting to anchor their authority within these cosmic concepts, placing themselves at the center of a spiritually charged environment. Yet Nan Madol was also a place of political tension. The Sodalur dynasty wielded absolute power and demanded tributes from surrounding communities. Over time, their rule became increasingly oppressive. Oral histories recount that the last Sodalur rulers abused their authority, imposing harsh restrictions and ignoring traditional customs. This growing resentment set the stage for their eventual downfall, led by a heroic figure named Isoklikal, who overthrew the dynasty and transformed Pohnpei's social structure. After the Sodalur collapse, Nan Madol slowly declined and was eventually abandoned, its once vibrant canals falling silent as nature reclaimed the site. Today, the ruins of Nan Madol remain shrouded in an eerie atmosphere. Mangrove trees curl around the basalt blocks, and their roots wrap through ancient walls like fingers of time. Still, the city's geometric layout is unmistakable. Visitors paddling through the canals can glide beneath towering stone walls, their reflections shimmering in the water below. On land, stepping across the islets feels like walking through the ghost of a lost metropolis. The silence is broken only by the call of birds or the rustle of leaves, a sharp contrast to the ceremonial vibrancy that once filled this place. Nan Madol challenges our understanding of what ancient island societies were capable of. Its scale rivals that of major stone complexes around the world, yet it was built by a relatively small population with limited resources. The skill required to transport, shape, and position the basalt columns raises questions about forgotten technologies, lost expertise, or methods not yet fully understood. Even today, the city feels ahead of its time, an architectural marvel whose boldness matches the most ambitious constructions of ancient civilizations. The ruins also carry a sense of melancholy. They speak of a society that reached great heights but ultimately crumbled beneath the weight of centralized power and environmental constraints. The canals, once bustling with ceremonial canoes, now lie still. Buildings that once held kings and priests are filled with moss and silence. And yet, the spirit of Nan Madol endures. It stands as a testament to human ambition and imagination, a reminder that even isolated cultures could dream magnificently and leave behind monuments that defy explanation. For archaeologists and historians, Nan Madol is a treasure trove waiting to be fully understood. Its origins, construction techniques, and cultural significance continue to be studied, revealing new insights into Micronesian history. But beyond academic curiosity, Nan Madol invites philosophical reflection. It shows how humans shape landscapes to reflect their beliefs, how power can centralize and collapse, and how nature eventually reclaims all that is built. As we leave the watery corridors of Nan Madol behind and continue our journey through the world's ancient megaliths, the stone city remains vivid in our imagination. Rising from the ocean like a dream carved in basalt, it embodies the dual nature of human achievement, magnificent yet fragile, enduring yet impermanent. It reminds us that even on distant islands, far from the great civilizations of the ancient world, people constructed architectural wonders that still whisper across time. Across continents and millennia, from deserts to forests to islands in the farthest corners of the world, one theme appears again and again: ancient people chose stone. They chose it when wood was easier to shape, when clay was more abundant, when the labor required seemed almost unbearable. They chose it even when it meant dragging monoliths across mountains, chiseling through bedrock, or carving symbols that would outlast empires. Stone was their voice, their canvas, their anchor in a world of constant change. And the deeper we journey into humanity's megalithic past, the clearer this truth becomes: stone was not just a building material, it was a philosophy. To understand this choice, we must imagine ourselves not as modern observers but as early humans living in a world where the environment dictated every decision. Seasons shifted unpredictably, storms threatened survival, and life was fragile. Amid this uncertainty, stone represented something miraculous: permanence. Where wood decayed, stone endured. Where earth collapsed, stone stood firm. Where memory faded, stone remained. For the ancient mind, permanence was sacred. To etch a belief or a story into stone was to protect it from the erosion of time. Stone also held symbolic power. It connected the human world to the deep past, geological time far older than any memory or myth. When people carved a monolith or raised a stone circle, they were participating in a dialogue with the earth itself. The rock had existed long before them, and would exist long after. By shaping it, they asserted their presence in a universe where human life was fleeting. They anchored themselves into a timeline far greater than the span of a single lifetime. In carving stone, they carved immortality. But there was more than practicality and symbolism at play. Working with stone required community. No individual could erect a megalith alone. These monuments represent collective identity, people gathering, organizing, cooperating, and believing in something beyond themselves. The stones were not just constructions, they were expressions of unity. Building them forged bonds, strengthened clans, and affirmed shared beliefs. The act of raising a stone was as important as the stone itself. In many cultures, stone structures served as ceremonial spaces, a bridge between the physical and the spiritual. They were aligned with stars, solstices, equinoxes, mountains, rivers, and celestial cycles. The builders observed the heavens with meticulous attention, embedding cosmic rhythms into the architecture. When sunlight streamed through a narrow passage on a specific morning or cast a shadow at a precise angle, it reinforced the idea that the universe was ordered, predictable, and connected to human destiny. Stone's endurance also shaped ideas of death and the afterlife. Tombs made of stone were built not merely to house the dead, but to guide them into eternity. They acted as portals where light and shadow danced with symbolic meaning. In many cultures, ancestors became guardians, their memories preserved in these enduring monuments. Stone, therefore, was not only a medium for architecture but a vessel for continuity, linking past, present, and future. As civilizations grew, stone became a measure of power. Rulers commissioned massive structures to demonstrate authority, legitimacy, and divine favor. Empires chiseled their triumphs into stone walls. Priests raised temples that mirrored celestial order. Communities constructed sanctuaries where rituals unfolded year after year. The larger and more enduring the stone monument, the greater the social and spiritual power it conveyed. Yet despite the cultural differences across continents, one universal truth emerges: stone gave ancient people a way to express their deepest hopes and fears. It allowed them to transform landscapes into sacred places, shaping environments into reflections of their beliefs. Stone monuments were humanity's first attempts to make meaning eternal. Even the mystery surrounding these monuments, the unanswered questions about their construction, purpose, and symbolism, speak to the complexity of the ancient mind. These structures were not random. They were thoughtfully designed, imbued with stories, aligned with cosmic movements, and integrated into the natural world. They reveal a worldview where everything was interconnected: earth, sky, ancestors, gods, seasons, and communities. Today, when we stand before these ancient stones, we feel something powerful stir within us. We sense the intention behind each placement, the labor embedded in each carved surface, the unity required to lift each block. We recognize in these monuments a shared human desire, to be remembered, to understand the universe, to connect with something larger than oneself. Stone makes us humble. It reminds us of our fragility and our potential. It shows us that our ancestors, though separated from us by thousands of years, grappled with the same fundamental questions we face now. Who are we? Why are we here? How do we make our brief existence meaningful? As we near the end of this journey through ancient megaliths, the final mystery becomes clear. Ancient people chose stone not simply because it was strong, but because it allowed them to reach beyond the limits of their lives. It allowed them to create something that stood against time, nature, and forgetfulness. Stone carried their voices forward. And even now, those voices still speak. Across the world, scattered across plains, deserts, jungles, mountains, islands, and oceans, ancient stones rise from the earth like frozen memories. They stand silent, weathered, patient, and yet, when we walk among them, something inexplicable happens. They speak. Not in words, not in sounds, but in a language older than speech itself. A language felt in the chest, not heard in the ears. A language woven from presence, endurance, and the mysterious continuity of human existence. These stones, carved by hands long returned to dust, stand as bridges between ages. They are the oldest storytellers we have, and when we approach them, whether at dawn, under a burning sun, or in the hush of twilight, they seem to ask questions. Not simple ones. Not questions of archaeology or engineering alone. But questions that reach into the soul. What does it mean to build something meant to outlast memory? What were our ancestors reaching for? And what, in turn, are we meant to learn from them today? To understand the echoes carried by these megaliths, we must first step into the shoes of those who carved them. Imagine the world as it once was, raw, unpredictable, immense. Imagine waking each morning to a landscape that never explained itself. Storms came without warning. Seasons shifted with no calendar to predict them. The stars wheeled overhead like incomprehensible guardians. Death hovered close, and life was a daily gift rather than a guarantee. In such a world, every human action had meaning because nothing was certain. Every choice felt like a negotiation with the cosmos. And so, the earliest people, lacking written words, lacking machines, lacking permanence in their daily lives, turned to the one thing they believed could endure, stone. Yet stone was more than a material. It was a conversation partner. A witness. A threshold. A bridge between the mortal and the eternal. Stone, unlike flesh, did not die. Unlike wood, it did not rot. Unlike stories spoken by firelight, it did not fade with the passing of a single breath. When the ancestors shaped stone, they were shaping time itself. They were attempting to steady the trembling edge of human existence by anchoring it to the bones of the earth. This impulse, the desire to anchor meaning, is something we still feel today. It is the same impulse that drives us to build monuments, write books, create art, raise families, leave legacies. Beneath the layers of technology and modern life, we remain the same species that once lifted monoliths higher than trees, carved faces into mountainsides, and aligned stones with the rising sun. So when we stand before these prehistoric monuments, we feel something stir inside us, not because the stones themselves have changed, but because we recognize something familiar within them. We see ourselves. Or at least, echoes of who we have always been. But the stones do more than reflect us, they challenge us. They ask questions that grow heavier with time. They ask, why do you hurry? What do you fear? What will remain of you? These questions are not meant to intimidate but to illuminate. They remind us that the span of a single human life is brief, fragile, and fleeting compared to the vastness of time. But they also remind us that meaning is not measured in years, it is measured in intention. The people who built megaliths were not immortal, yet they created things that would endure across thousands of lifetimes. They remind us that legacy is not about duration, it is about depth. Consider the builders of Göbekli Tepe, people who raised monumental temples before agriculture had even taken root. They were not driven by wealth, politics, or kingship. They were driven by belief, by the desire to gather, to worship, to create something that could hold their understanding of the universe. Their stones reveal a truth we've nearly forgotten, that community begins with shared imagination. Consider the creators of Stonehenge, aligning stones with the sun as if weaving architecture into the sky. They remind us that science and spirituality were once interwoven, two threads of the same tapestry. For them, knowledge was sacred, and sacredness required observation, devotion, and cooperation. Consider the people of Baalbek, who shaped stones so enormous that even today we struggle to explain how they were moved. Their work reminds us that limits are often illusions, dissolving under the weight of determination and collective will. Their stones ask us whether we have underestimated not them, but ourselves. Consider the Rapa Nui carvers of the Moai, who shaped ancestral guardians from volcanic tuff, then transported them across their island in acts of ritual strength and unity. They remind us that even in isolation, human creativity flourishes. They remind us that identity is something we craft, not something we inherit. And they warn us that societies that lose balance with their environment can collapse, no matter how great their monuments. Consider the Nazca people, drawing vast shapes across the desert, figures so large they were never meant to be seen by human eyes alone. They remind us that meaning is not always visual. Sometimes it is walked, lived, and performed. Sometimes it is written for the sky instead of the earth. Consider Pumapunku's geometric stones, so precisely cut that even now they challenge our understanding of ancient craftsmanship. They ask us whether progress is truly linear, or whether ancient people possessed knowledge we have since forgotten. Across all these places, across all these cultures, one lesson becomes clear: humans have always sought connection to each other, connection to the earth, connection to the cosmos, connection to the past, and connection to the unknown forces shaping existence. The stones ask us, what do you connect to now? What anchors you in a world moving faster than your heart was designed to beat? Modern life overwhelms us with speed, noise, and distraction. We live in a time when information changes faster than landscapes, when attention is stretched thin across glowing screens, when silence feels unfamiliar. Yet the stones, standing tall in ancient fields, remind us that silence is not emptiness, it is clarity. That slowness is not stagnation, it is awareness. And that standing still is not failure, it is remembering. The builders of megaliths lived slowly. They built slowly. They thought in terms of generations rather than individual lifespans. This patience is carved into every monument they left behind. It's a patience we struggle to access today. The stones ask us to reclaim it. To breathe. To observe. To rediscover the rhythm of the earth beneath our feet. But perhaps the deepest question the stones ask is this: what will you leave behind? Not in stone, our age is not one of megaliths, but in meaning. What stories will survive you? What kindness will echo beyond your years? What truth will stand when your name has faded? The stones remind us that permanence is not found in material things but in impact. The people who built the world's first monuments did not have technology, wealth, or global influence. What they had was intention, pure, powerful intention. An intention to honor the dead. To celebrate the living. To understand the universe. To connect with forces greater than themselves. They left behind the architecture of their hearts. We are invited to do the same. In the final echoes of these ancient stones, we hear a message not of the past but of the future. A message urging us to slow down, to look up at the sky more often, to touch the earth with reverence, and to remember that human greatness is not measured by skyscrapers or machines, but by awareness, wisdom, and unity. The stones ask us to be present. To listen. To wonder. To dream boldly but live humbly. To build, not monuments of stone, but monuments of compassion, imagination, and truth. As we near the end of this monumental journey, one realization becomes clear: the megaliths of the ancient world are not relics. They are companions. They are mirrors reflecting our deepest questions and our most enduring strengths. They remind us that humanity has always sought meaning in the vast mystery of existence, and that we are still seeking it today. And so, if we allow ourselves to truly listen, the stones whisper a final truth, one that echoes softly across millennia: you, too, are part of the story.